Caleb Hayes didn't know the woman sitting across from him was worth $3 billion. He didn't know her name made boardrooms go silent, or that she'd never let anyone close enough to hurt her. What he did know, standing there in his work boots at her corporate gala, dirt still under his fingernails, was that walking away from her would be the biggest mistake of his life. If you want to see how a construction worker and a billionaire CEO tore down every wall between them, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The overhead lights in the cafe felt too bright. Caleb Hayes sat in the corner booth, checking his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. 7:32. She was late. Or maybe she'd looked through the window, seen him sitting there in his faded Carhartt jacket and work jeans, and kept walking. He shouldn't have come. His sister Maya had set this up 3 weeks ago, back when he'd made the mistake of mentioning he was tired. Not physically tired, though 12-hour days framing houses in the Seattle rain would do that to anyone, but tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. The kind that settled into your bones when you realized you'd been going through the motions for so long, you'd forgotten what it felt like to actually want something for yourself. "You need to get out," Maya had said, cornering him at Sunday dinner while his daughter Lily was distracted with coloring books. "When's the last time you went on an actual date?" "I go out." "Parent-teacher conferences don't count." "I took Lily to the aquarium last month." "What?" "Caleb." Maya had given him that look, the one she'd perfected when they were kids, and she'd caught him trying to hide a bad report card. "You're 32, not 60. You're allowed to have a life that doesn't revolve around work and bedtime stories." He tried to argue, but Maya was relentless. She had a friend, Elena, who was also single, also busy, also maybe ready to try something new. Just coffee. 1 hour. If it went badly, they'd both have a story to tell and never speak of it again. Now, sitting alone in a cafe that smelled like burnt espresso and someone's overly ambitious cinnamon experiment, Caleb was starting to think the never speak of it again part was already in effect. The door chimed. Caleb looked up and forgot how to breathe. The woman who entered wasn't what he'd expected. Maya had said her friend was successful, professional, maybe a little intense. She hadn't mentioned that Elena would move through the cafe like she was used to people stepping aside, that her dark hair would fall in precise waves that somehow looked effortless, or that she'd be sitting in a wheelchair that probably cost more than his truck. Elena's eyes swept the room with the efficiency of someone used to assessing situations quickly. When her gaze landed on Caleb, something flickered across her face, surprise maybe, or resignation. She wheeled herself forward with smooth, practiced movements. "Caleb?" Her voice was lower than he'd expected, controlled. He stood too quickly, nearly knocking his water glass over. "Yeah, hi, Elena?" "Oh, give me? Yee. That's me." She positioned herself across from him with the kind of precision that suggested she'd calculated the exact angle. "I'm late. Traffic was worse than usual. It's fine. I just got here." A lie, but a kind one. She studied him for a moment, and Caleb had the uncomfortable sensation of being catalogued. She was beautiful in a way that felt deliberate. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that didn't miss anything, the kind of posture that came from years of people watching her. Everything about her seemed designed to keep the world at a specific distance. "Look," Elena said, before he could figure out what to say next. "I'm going to save us both some time. Maya means well, but she has a habit of volunteering me for things without fully explaining what she's getting me into. If you want to leave, I won't be offended. We can tell her we gave it a shot, and you can go back to your evening." Caleb sat back down. "You want me to leave? I'm giving you an exit. There's a difference. What if I don't want one?" Elena's expression shifted, just slightly, like a door opening an inch. "Then you're either very polite or you have terrible judgment. Maybe both." Caleb picked up his menu, though he'd already read it twice while waiting. "You always this welcoming on first dates?" "I don't go on first dates." She wheeled slightly closer to the table. "This is a statistical anomaly. Hey, then we're both having an unusual night." He set the menu down. "I don't do this either. My sister basically ambushed me into it." "Maya ambushed you too?" The corner of Elena's mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "She told me you were a construction worker who needed to expand his social circle. She told me you were a professional who worked too much and needed to remember how to have fun." Caleb shook his head. I'm starting to think we've been set up by the same meddling matchmaker. It appears so. Elena glanced at the menu, then back at him. So now what? Now we decide if we're going to prove her right or make her regret interfering in our lives. I like the second option. Me too. Caleb caught the server's attention. You want coffee? Or are you one of those people who orders tea at a coffee shop just to be contrary? I drink coffee. Black. Hot enough to be dangerous. A woman after my own heart. The server arrived and they ordered 2 black coffees, nothing fancy. Elena requested hers extra hot. Caleb asked for his in a mug instead of a paper cup. Small preferences, but they felt like the first honest exchange of the evening. When the server left, Elena folded her hands on the table. So, construction. What kind? Residential framing, mostly. New builds, some renovations. Whatever keeps the lights on. Caleb leaned back. And before you ask, yes, I'm tired most of the time. No, I don't mind getting dirty. And yes, I actually like what I do. I wasn't going to ask any of that. Most people do. They hear construction and immediately jump to assumptions. I'm not most people. Elena's gaze was steady. What made you get into it? Caleb hadn't expected that question. My dad. He was a carpenter. Taught me how to frame a wall before I could do long division. When he died, I was 19. Figured I'd keep doing what he loved. He paused. That probably sounds sentimental. Sounds honest. Elena's voice had softened slightly. Is that what you want? To keep doing what he did? Mostly, though I wouldn't mind running my own crew someday, being the guy who makes the decisions instead of the one who executes someone else's vision. Caleb realized he'd said more than he'd intended. What about you? Maya was vague about what you actually do. Elena hesitated just for a second. I work in technology, corporate side, strategy, development, long-term planning. It's demanding. Sounds like an understatement. It is. She took a sip of her coffee, winced slightly at the temperature. I'm good at what I do, but it doesn't leave much room for anything else. Most days I'm moving between meetings, putting out fires, making decisions that affect hundreds of people. By the time I get home, I'm too tired to think about my own life. So why'd you agree to this? Caleb gestured between them. If you're that busy? Because Maya wouldn't stop asking, and because part of me was curious. Elena met his eyes. I wanted to see if there was someone out there who could look at me and see more than a problem to solve. The honesty in that statement caught Caleb off guard. He'd expected polish, deflection, maybe some corporate speak about work-life balance. Instead, she'd handed him something real. I'm not here to solve anything, he said quietly. I've got enough of my own mess to sort through. What kind of mess? The single dad kind. 6-year-old daughter named Lily. Her mom left when she was 2. Decided motherhood wasn't what she'd signed up for and took off to Portland with some guy she met at a yoga retreat. Caleb ran a hand through his hair. Most days I feel like I'm one forgotten permission slip away from completely failing at this. But you're still doing it. Don't have much choice. She's my kid. I'm all she's got. Elena was quiet for a moment. That's more than some people get. There was weight in those words, something that suggested she understood absence in ways Caleb hadn't experienced. He wanted to ask, but the set of her shoulders warned him not to push. Instead, he asked, You ever think about having kids? No. The answer was immediate, almost reflexive, then softer. My life doesn't have room for that kind of vulnerability. Kids aren't vulnerable. They're terrifying. They ask questions you can't answer and judge you for things you didn't know were mistakes until it's too late. Elena almost smiled. You make it sound appealing. It's the best worst thing I've ever done. Caleb finished his coffee. But I wouldn't trade it, even on the days when I'm pretty sure I'm screwing everything up. They talked for another hour. Caleb learned that Elena hated small talk but loved true crime podcasts, that she'd taught herself to code at 14, that she'd traveled to 23 countries for work but had never taken a vacation just because she wanted to. Elena learned that Caleb could quote entire Dr. Seuss books from memory, that he'd broken his wrist twice doing stupid things on construction sites, that he missed his dad most when Lily did something that would have made him laugh. The conversation wasn't smooth. There were pauses, moments where they both seemed to be deciding whether to say the next thing or let it pass. But it was real in a way Caleb hadn't felt in years, like talking to someone who didn't need him to be anything other than exactly what he was. When they finally left the cafe, the Seattle rain had started up again, turning the sidewalks slick and reflective. Caleb walked Elena to her car, a sleek black SUV with modifications he didn't fully understand but could tell were expensive. "This was better than I expected," Elena said, rain catching in her dark hair. "Same." Caleb shoved his hands in his pockets. "Think we've given Maya enough ammunition to never let us forget this?" "Absolutely. She's going to be insufferable. Worth it, though." Elena looked at him, really looked, and for the first time that evening she seemed uncertain. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why didn't you leave? At the beginning, when I gave you the chance?" Caleb considered the question. He could have said something easy, something polite about giving things a fair shot. Instead, he told her the truth. "Because you looked at me like you were expecting me to disappoint you, and I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't. Mathieu." Elena didn't respond right away. The rain fell harder, drumming against the roof of her SUV. Finally, she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "Give me your number." "Yeah? Unless you'd prefer I track you down through Maya's elaborate social network." Caleb rattled off his number. Elena typed it in with quick, efficient movements. "I'm not good at this," she said, looking up at him. "The dating thing, the letting people in thing. I'll probably screw it up." "Join the club. I'll bring the membership cards." She almost laughed, a sound he suddenly wanted to hear more of. "I'll text you. If you want to do this again. I want to do this again." "Okay." Elena started the mechanism to open her door. "And Caleb?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for staying." She left before he could respond, her SUV pulling away into the rainy Seattle night. Caleb stood there on the sidewalk, rain soaking through his jacket, and realized he was smiling. His phone buzzed 20 minutes later while he was stuck in traffic on his way back to his apartment. "No number. This is Elena. I had a good time tonight." He saved her number, typed back quickly. Caleb: "Me too. Same time next week?" Elena: "I'll check my schedule." Caleb: "Is that corporate speak for yes?" Elena: "It's corporate speak for I'll make it work." That night, after he had gotten home and paid the babysitter and checked on Lily sleeping peacefully in her room surrounded by stuffed animals, Caleb lay in bed thinking about a woman who moved through the world in a wheelchair and somehow made him feel like the one who needed steadying. He didn't know that Elena was a billionaire. He didn't know her full name was Elena Voss, or that she ran a tech empire worth more than most small countries, or that tabloids had speculated about her personal life for years without ever getting close to the truth. All he knew was that she'd looked at him like he might be worth the risk, and for the first time in 5 years, Caleb Hayes felt like maybe his life could be more than just getting through the next day. The second time they met, Elena suggested a walk in Discovery Park. "You sure?" Caleb had texted back. "The trails aren't exactly wheelchair accessible." Elena: "There are paved paths. I've been there before." Caleb: "If you're sure." Elena: "Caleb, I'm always sure." She arrived in different clothes this time: dark jeans, a gray sweater that looked soft, practical boots. Her wheelchair was the same sleek machine from the cafe, but somehow she looked more relaxed, less like she was braced for conflict. "You're early," she said, wheeling up to where he stood by the park entrance. "Perks of flexible construction hours. We finished the framing ahead of schedule." Caleb fell into step beside her as they started down the path. "How was your week?" Endless meetings about quarterly projections and market positioning, riveting stuff. Elena navigated around a family with strollers. "Yours?" "Lily's school is doing a Thanksgiving play. Guess who got volunteered to build a cardboard turkey?" "You." "Me." Apparently my reputation as Lily's dad who knows how to use power tools has spread among the PTA. He grinned. I'm thinking of charging consulting fees. Smart business model. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, following the path through towering Douglas firs. The rain had cleared for once, leaving everything bright and almost painfully green. Other people passed, joggers, dog walkers, couples holding hands. But Caleb noticed how Elena seemed to relax as they got further from the parking lot. Can I ask you something? Caleb said eventually. Depends on the question. The wheelchair. Were you born with... He stopped, suddenly uncertain. Sorry, is that rude to ask? It's rude to assume. Asking is fine. Elena's voice was matter-of-fact. Car accident. 7 years ago. Spinal injury, T6 complete. Doctors said I'd never walk again, and so far they've been right. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not. She glanced up at him. I know that sounds like something people say to make others comfortable, but I mean it. This chair is part of my life now. I'm good at adapting. Still, that must have been hard. It was, but harder than the injury was watching people change how they treated me. Suddenly I wasn't Elena anymore. I was poor Elena. Brave Elena. Elena who needed help crossing the street even though I'd specifically said I didn't. She paused. You haven't done that. Done what? Treated me like I'm fragile, or like you need to compensate for something I'm supposedly missing. Caleb thought about that. My dad used to say that people are who they are, and everything else is just details. You're not your wheelchair any more than I'm my work boots. Your dad sounds like he was smart. He had his moments. Caleb steered them toward a bench overlooking the sound. You want to sit for a minute? They settled on the bench, Elena positioning her chair at an angle so they could see each other. In the distance, ferries crossed the gray-blue water, and the Olympic mountains rose up like promises. Tell me something true, Elena said suddenly. What? Something true about you, something you don't usually tell people. Caleb leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm scared I'm screwing up Lily. Every day I wake up terrified that I'm missing something important, that she's going to grow up and realize her dad had no idea what he was doing, that she deserved better. Elena was quiet for a moment. That's not true. How would you know? Because people who don't care don't worry about screwing up. They just do it and move on. She met his eyes. You're a good father, I can tell. You've never met her. I've met you. That's enough. Something in Caleb's chest loosened. Your turn. Tell me something true. Elena looked out at the water. When she spoke, her voice was quieter. I haven't let anyone get close to me since the accident. Not really. I've had relationships, brief, transactional, safe, but nothing that mattered. Nothing where I'd have to risk someone seeing all of me and deciding it wasn't enough. Why tell me this? Because you asked. She turned back to him. And because something about you makes me want to try. They stayed on that bench for another hour, talking about things that mattered and things that didn't. Elena told him about growing up with parents who measured success in spreadsheets and profit margins, about learning early that vulnerability was a liability. Caleb told her about Lily's latest obsession with dinosaurs, about the way his daughter could make him laugh even on his worst days. When they finally left the park, the sun was starting to set, painting everything gold and orange. I want to see you again, Caleb said as they reached her SUV. Good, because I already have next week blocked off in my calendar. You schedule dates? I schedule everything. It's a compulsion. Elena smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. But I'm willing to be spontaneous if you are. I'll work on my spontaneity. You work on not treating every interaction like a business meeting. Deal. Over the next 3 weeks, they fell into a pattern. Coffee on Tuesday evenings, walks on Saturdays, occasional texts that turned into hour-long conversations about nothing important. Caleb learned that Elena was terrible at movies because she spent the whole time analyzing plot holes. Elena learned that Caleb could cook exactly 3 dishes well and rotated through them religiously. They didn't talk about the future. They didn't define what they were doing. It existed in the spaces between their regular lives, a separate world where Caleb wasn't a struggling single dad, and Elena wasn't whatever high-powered professional she was during the day. It wasn't until their fifth date that Caleb realized how little he actually knew about her work. They were sitting in a small Thai restaurant in Fremont, sharing pad Thai and arguing about whether pineapple belonged on pizza, when Caleb's phone rang. Lily's school. He excused himself, stepped outside to take the call. Lily had thrown up in class. Could he come get her? When he came back inside, Elena took one look at his face and said, "What's wrong?" "Lily's sick. I need to pick her up." He reached for his wallet. "I'm sorry. I'll get the check." "Go! I've got it." Elena waved him off. "Is she okay?" "Just a stomach bug, probably, but I should, He hesitated. "I'm sorry. This is the third time I've had to bail early." "Caleb, she's your daughter. Go." He made it to the school in record time, found Lily looking miserable in the nurse's office. She perked up slightly when she saw him. "Daddy, my tummy hurts." "I know. Sweetheart, let's get you home." He carried her to the truck. She was getting too big for this, but she curled against his chest like she used to when she was little. His phone buzzed as he was buckling her in. "Elena, is she okay?" "Caleb, yeah, just needs rest and maybe some ginger ale." "Elena, tell her I hope she feels better." "Caleb, you want to meet her?" The message sat there for a long moment. Then, "Elena, when she's not sick, maybe. If you think she'd be okay with it." "Caleb, she'd love you. Fair warning, though, she'll probably interrogate you about your favorite dinosaur." "Elena, I'll prepare my answer carefully." That night, after Lily had fallen asleep clutching her favorite stuffed triceratops, Caleb sat on his couch thinking about introducing his daughter to a woman he'd known for less than a month. It felt fast. It felt risky. It also felt right. The introduction happened 2 weeks later, at the Seattle Aquarium. Lily had been begging to go back ever since their last visit, and when Caleb mentioned it to Elena, she'd offered to join them. "If you're sure," she'd said, "I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding, but warning, 6-year-olds have a lot of energy and zero filter. I'll manage." They met by the entrance on a Saturday morning. Lily spotted Elena first and stopped dead in her tracks. "Daddy, that lady has a cool chair." "Lily," Caleb started, mortified. But Elena just smiled. "Thanks. It is pretty cool. Want to see how it works?" Lily's eyes went wide. "Can I?" For the next 10 minutes, Elena patiently explained the mechanics of her wheelchair to a fascinated 6-year-old. Lily asked approximately 4,000 questions. Why did the wheels turn that way? Could it go really fast? Did she ever race people? Could Lily try sitting in it? And Elena answered each one with the kind of patience Caleb hadn't known she possessed. "You're good with her," he said quietly, while Lily was distracted by the touch pools. "She's easy to talk to. She doesn't pity me or pretend not to notice. She just thinks the chair is interesting." Elena watched Lily trying to convince a sea anemone to high-five her. "I like that." They spent 3 hours wandering through exhibits. Lily dragged them to the octopus tank, the sea otter habitat, and the underwater dome where sharks glided overhead like shadows. She held Caleb's hand on one side and, without asking, reached for Elena's on the other. Elena looked down at the small hand in hers, then up at Caleb. Something passed between them, a question, an answer, a promise neither of them was ready to name. At lunch in the aquarium cafe, Lily announced, "I like Elena. She's smart and she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby." "I like you too," Elena said seriously. "You're one of the best conversationalists I've met in years." "What's a conversation? That word?" "Someone who's good at talking and listening." Oh, then yeah, I'm good at that." Lily took a massive bite of her grilled cheese. "Daddy says I never stop talking." "That's not what I said." Caleb tried. "He said I have a lot of important thoughts and sometimes they all come out at once." Elena laughed, genuinely laughed, and Caleb felt something shift in his chest. This was what he'd been missing. Not romance, not excitement, but this. Someone who could sit with him and his daughter and make everything feel lighter. After lunch, while Lily was pressing her face against the jellyfish tank, Elena said, "Thank you for this." "For what? Letting a 6-year-old ask you uncomfortable questions?" "Well, for letting me be part of it. Your life. This." She gestured vaguely. I haven't had anything like this in a long time. Neither have I. They stayed until closing, until Lily was yawning and dragging her feet and demanding to be carried. Caleb scooped her up, and she immediately conked out on his shoulder. Elena walked them to his truck in the parking lot. "She's out cold," Caleb said, settling Lily into her car seat. "She had a big day." Elena watched him buckle the straps with practiced efficiency. "No, you're good at that. I've had practice." When he straightened up, Elena was closer than he'd expected. Close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, close enough to notice the faint scar above her left eyebrow. "Caleb." "Yeah? I need to tell you something." His stomach dropped. Here it came. The inevitable revelation that this was moving too fast, that she wasn't ready, that he was a complication she couldn't afford. "Okay," he said carefully. Elena took a breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you. About my work, about who I am." "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, Lily stirred in her car seat. "Daddy? I don't feel good." Caleb turned immediately. "Carsick, sweetheart?" Yeah. He grabbed the emergency bag he kept in the truck. Crackers, water, motion sickness bands. Elena wheeled back slightly, giving them space. By the time he'd gotten Lily settled and calm, the moment had passed. Elena's expression had shuddered again, all that vulnerable honesty locked back down. "You should get her home," Elena said. "What were you going to tell me?" "It can wait." But her voice said it couldn't, not really. "Text me when you're home safe?" "Elena, please, I'll explain later." She left before he could press, her SUV disappearing into traffic. Caleb stood there with his sleeping daughter in the truck, feeling like he'd just missed something crucial. That night, after Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet, his phone lit up. "Elena, I'm sorry for being cryptic earlier." "Caleb, you don't have to apologize, but I'm here if you want to talk about it." Elena, "Not over text. Can we meet tomorrow? Just us." Caleb, "Yeah. Where?" Elena, "That cafe where we first met, 7 p.m. Caleb, "I'll be there." He waited for another message, but none came. Just the three dots that appeared and disappeared over and over, like she was typing and deleting, trying to find the right words. Finally, "Thank you for today. It meant more than you know." Caleb stared at his phone for a long time before responding. "Caleb, it meant a lot to me too." He didn't sleep well that night. He kept thinking about the look on Elena's face in the parking lot, the way she'd pulled back right when she was about to tell him something important. Whatever secret she was carrying, it was big enough to make her scared. And Caleb Hayes, who'd built his life on stability and predictability and keeping his daughter safe from anything that might hurt her, was about to find out exactly how unstable the ground beneath him really was. The cafe looked different at 7 in the evening. The after-work crowd had thinned out, leaving just a few scattered tables occupied by people hunched over laptops or lost in conversation. Caleb arrived 10 minutes early, ordered his usual black coffee, and tried not to think about all the ways this conversation could go wrong. Elena arrived exactly on time. She always did. But tonight something was different. She wore a tailored blazer over a black shirt, pearl earrings that caught the light. Her hair pulled back in a way that made her look older, more severe. This wasn't the woman who'd spent an afternoon patiently explaining wheelchair mechanics to a curious 6-year-old. This was someone else, someone armored. "Hi," she said, wheeling up to the table. "Hey." Caleb stood, then sat back down when she positioned herself across from him. "You want coffee?" "I'm fine." She folded her hands on the table, and Caleb noticed they were shaking slightly. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me get through it before you say anything. Can you do that?" His stomach tightened. "Yeah, okay." Elena took a breath. "My full name is Elena Voss. I'm the CEO of Voss Technologies. We develop AI software and cloud infrastructure for enterprise clients. Last year, our revenue was $3.2 billion. I have 1,800 employees across 4 continents. Forbes ranks me as one of the top 50 most powerful women in technology." Caleb stared at her. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to see if you could know me without knowing that. Every person I've met in the last 7 years has either wanted something from me or treated me like a charity case. You did neither. You just saw me." Her voice cracked slightly, and I didn't want to lose that. The words hung between them. Caleb's mind was racing, trying to reconcile the woman sitting across from him with what she'd just said. Billionaire, CEO, one of the most powerful women in tech. Say something, Elena said quietly. I don't know what to say. Are you angry? I don't know. Caleb ran his hand through his hair. You've been lying to me this whole time? Not lying, omitting. That's a hell of an omission, Elena. He leaned back. What else haven't you told me? You married? Got kids somewhere? Running for political office? No, nothing like that. She met his eyes. Just this. I wanted you to know me before you knew what I was worth. And now I'm telling you because I can't keep hiding it. There's an event next week, a tech industry gala. It's public, high profile. If we're going to keep seeing each other, you need to know what you're getting into. Caleb's coffee had gone cold. He pushed it aside. Why does it matter? We're just whatever this is. Two people having coffee and going to aquariums. Why do I need to know about your corporate empire? Because it's not just coffee. Elena's voice was fierce now. You met my daughter. You let me into your life. I owe you the truth about mine. So what? You're rich. You run a company. How does that change anything? Shame. It changes everything. She leaned forward. I have security protocols, non-disclosure agreements, people who manage my public image. If someone sees us together, if a photo gets posted online, your life becomes news. Lily's life becomes news. Strangers will dig into your past, your finances, your custody arrangement. They'll speculate about whether you're with me for money or pity or some calculated reason. That's what this changes. Tu? Itasen. The weight of it hit him all at once. This wasn't just about her being successful. This was about stepping into a world where privacy was a commodity and every interaction was filtered through suspicion. Jesus, Caleb muttered. I understand if you want to walk away. I won't blame you. You signed up for coffee with a woman Maya set you up with, not a three-ring circus with paparazzi and invasive questions about your tax returns. Caleb looked at her, really looked. Beneath the armor, beneath the corporate polish, he could see the fear. She was terrified he'd leave, and maybe a smarter man would have. Maybe someone with better self-preservation instincts would have thanked her for the honesty and walked away before things got complicated. But Caleb had never been particularly smart about protecting himself. This gala, he said. When is it? Elena blinked. Friday. Why? Do I need to wear a suit? You want to come? You just told me that being with you means dealing with media attention and people making assumptions. So I'm asking, do I need to rent a tux? Or will my one nice suit work? Caleb, I'm not walking away because you have money, Elena. That's the dumbest reason I've ever heard for ending something that actually feels real. He reached across the table, covered her shaking hands with his. But I need you to be straight with me from now on. No more omissions. No more protecting me from your world. If we're doing this, we're doing it for real. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. Then explain it to me, right now. All of it. So she did. For the next 2 hours, Elena told him everything. About building Voss Technologies from a startup she'd founded at 23 in a shared office space. About the accident that had happened during a company retreat. A drunk driver, a highway, a moment that changed everything. About the months of rehabilitation where she'd had to learn how to run a company from a hospital bed while dealing with investors who suddenly saw her disability as a liability. She told him about the loneliness, the way people either treated her like she was made of glass or like she was some inspiration porn success story, the relationships that had failed because men either wanted to fix her or wanted access to her money. The decision to just stop trying, to pour everything into work and accept that maybe some people weren't meant for personal happiness. Until Maya ambushed you into meeting me, Caleb said. Until then. Elena's smile was small but genuine. She's been trying to set me up for years. I always said no. But something about the way she described you, a single dad who was tired but still showing up, I don't know. It felt familiar. We're both tired people doing our best. Yeah, we are. Caleb squeezed her hands. So this gala, what should I expect? Lots of people in expensive clothes pretending to care about technological innovation while actually networking and drinking free champagne. Speeches, dancing. Probably someone will recognize me and want to talk business. Elena grimaced. I usually hate these things. But you're going anyway? It's part of the job. Showing face, making connections, reminding people that Voss Technologies is still relevant. She paused. I've never brought anyone before. I always go alone. Well, now you won't have to. You really want to do this? You'll be photographed. People will ask questions. Your name will end up in business blogs and gossip sites. Is that really what you want? Caleb thought about it. Really thought about it. He thought about Lily, about protecting her from the inevitable attention. He thought about his job, his routine, his carefully constructed, quiet life. He thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Then he thought about Elena laughing at the aquarium, Elena taking Lily's questions seriously, Elena sitting across from him right now, terrified and vulnerable and brave enough to tell him the truth, even though it might cost her everything. Yeah, he said, I really want to do this. Elena exhaled, and Caleb realized she'd been holding her breath. Okay, then I'll have my assistant send you the details. Black tie. Friday at 7. The Grand Marquis Hotel downtown. I'll be there. Caleb? She caught his hand before he could pull away. Thank you for not running. I'm a construction worker from Seattle who drives a 15-year-old Ford. If anyone should be running, it's probably you. Not a chance. They stayed for another hour, talking about logistics and expectations, and what would happen if this blew up in their faces. Elena explained that she'd have security at the event, that there would be press photographers, but she could keep them at a distance, that Caleb didn't have to answer any questions he didn't want to. Just stay close to me, she said, and if it gets overwhelming, tell me. We can leave. I'm not going to bail on you in the middle of your own event. Well, I wouldn't blame you if you did. Well, I would. So let's plan on staying the whole time and making the best of it. When they finally left the cafe, the Seattle night had turned cold and damp. Caleb walked Elena to her SUV, same as always. I'll see you Friday, she said. Friday. He leaned down, hesitated, then kissed her forehead. It felt like a promise. And Elena? I'm glad you told me. All of it. Even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. Means you trust me. She smiled at that. A real smile. The kind that made her look younger. I do. Against my better judgment. Same. The next few days passed in a blur. Caleb borrowed a suit from his friend Marcus, who worked in sales and actually owned formal wear. He got a haircut. He told Lily he had an important work dinner and arranged for Maya to watch her Friday night. A work dinner, Maya said skeptically when he dropped Lily off. With Elena. How did you? She called me, asked if I thought you'd actually show up. Maya crossed her arms. So, I know. And you're still going? Why wouldn't I? Because most men would run screaming when they found out the woman they're dating is worth $3 billion and could buy and sell them without noticing the charge on her credit card. Caleb shifted his weight. I'm not most men. No. Maya's expression softened. You're really not. Just be careful, okay? This is a different world than what you're used to. I'm starting to figure that out. Friday arrived too quickly. Caleb spent the day on a job site, framing out a new addition on a house in Ballard. His hands were raw from the cold and the repetitive motion of hammering, but the physical work helped quiet his mind. He kept thinking about what Elena had said, about people making assumptions, about his life becoming public, about stepping into a world where he didn't know the rules. He showered at home, put on the borrowed suit, and stared at himself in the mirror. He looked ridiculous. The suit fit okay but felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. His hands had fresh calluses and a new cut across his knuckles from a piece of rough lumber. He looked exactly like what he was, a working-class guy playing dress-up. His phone buzzed. Elena, my driver can pick you up if you want. You don't have to navigate downtown parking. Caleb, I can drive myself. Elena, I know you can. I'm offering because those parking garages are a nightmare, and I don't want you stressed before you even get inside. He considered it. Pride said drive himself. Common sense said, take the offer. Caleb. Okay, thank you. Elena. He'll be there at 6:30. His name is Richard. Don't tip him. He's salaried and it makes him uncomfortable. Caleb. Got it. Elena. Caleb? Caleb. Yeah? Elena. I'm nervous too. Caleb. You've done 100 of these events. Elena. Not with you. The driver arrived exactly at 6:30 in a black town car that made Caleb's truck look like a toy. Richard was a quiet man in his 50s who opened the door without comment and drove smoothly through downtown traffic. The Grand Marquis Hotel was one of those places Caleb had driven past 1,000 times without ever imagining he'd go inside. The lobby was all marble and gold accents, with massive flower arrangements and men in uniforms directing well-dressed people toward a ballroom. Caleb followed the crowd, feeling more out of place with every step. The other guests looked comfortable here. Women in gowns that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Men in custom-tailored tuxedos, everyone moving with the easy confidence of people who belonged. Then he saw Elena. She was near the entrance to the ballroom, talking to a woman in a red dress. Elena wore midnight blue, something that shimmered when she moved, with her hair down in waves and her wheelchair looking somehow elegant instead of clinical. She was laughing at something the other woman said, and Caleb felt his chest tighten. She belonged here. He didn't. But then Elena turned and saw him, and her whole face changed. She said something quick to the woman in red and wheeled toward him with purpose. You came, she said. Did you think I wouldn't? Part of me worried you'd come to your senses. She reached for his hand. You look good. I look uncomfortable. That too. But good, uncomfortable. She squeezed his fingers. Come on, let's get this over with. The ballroom was overwhelming. Hundreds of people, all talking and laughing and drinking champagne from trays carried by circulating servers. A jazz band played in the corner. Round tables covered in white linens surrounded a dance floor. Everything was tasteful and expensive and completely foreign. Elena introduced him to people whose names he immediately forgot. CEOs and investors and board members. They all shook his hand with varying degrees of curiosity and condescension. A few asked what he did, and when he said construction, their smiles became fixed and plastic. You're doing great, Elena murmured during a brief moment alone. I haven't said more than 5 words. Exactly. You're not trying too hard. Half these people talk just to hear themselves speak. Should I be trying harder? No, just be yourself. She glanced around the room. Want to get some air? There's a balcony through those doors. They escaped outside, where the cold November wind was a relief after the stifling ballroom. The balcony overlooked downtown Seattle, lights spreading out in every direction, the Space Needle glowing in the distance. Better? Elena asked. Much. Caleb leaned against the railing. How do you do this all the time? Practice. And the understanding that most of it is performance. They don't care who I really am. They care about what I represent: success, opportunity, connections. She positioned herself beside him. You're the first person I've brought to one of these events who actually knows me. That's depressing. It's reality. She looked out at the city. I've been thinking about what you said, about being honest, no more omissions. Yeah? There's something else. About the accident. Elena's voice had gone quiet. I told you it was a drunk driver. That's true. What I didn't mention was that I was on my way to fire someone, a department head who'd been embezzling funds. I had proof, had consulted with lawyers, had everything ready. I was driving angry, not paying enough attention. Elena said, the driver was drunk, but I could have avoided him if I'd been more focused. I've gone over it 1,000 times. If I'd left 5 minutes earlier, if I'd taken a different route, if I'd just been watching the road instead of mentally rehearsing my termination speech. She gripped the arms of her wheelchair. So when people say how brave I am or how well I've adapted, they don't know that I did this to myself. Caleb didn't know what to say. The pain in her voice was raw, years old but still fresh. You can't blame yourself for someone else's choice to drive drunk, he said finally. Logically, I know that. Emotionally, different story. Yeah, I get that. Caleb thought about all the times he'd second-guessed his decisions with Lily's mom, wondering if he could have said something different, done something better. We all carry guilt for things we can't control. What's yours? He hadn't expected her to turn it around. Lily's mom. Sometimes I wonder if I was just too comfortable, too boring. If I'd been more exciting, more attentive, maybe she wouldn't have left. That's not on you. She made her choice. See? Easier to say to someone else than to believe about yourself. Elena laughed softly. We're a pair, aren't we? Two people carrying around guilt that doesn't belong to us. Seems like it. They stood in silence for a moment, the city noise muted by the height and the wind. Then Elena said, We should go back inside. There's going to be speeches soon, and I'm supposed to say a few words. You didn't mention you were speaking. It's just a thank you to our sponsors and partners. 3 minutes, maximum. She turned her chair toward the door. Will you sit with me? At the head table? You sure that's a good idea? I'm not exactly, I want you there, please. So Caleb followed her back inside, through the crowd to a long table at the front of the room. The seats were marked with elegant place cards. Elena's name was in the center, and next to it, added in different handwriting, Caleb Hayes. They sat. Well, Elena positioned her wheelchair at the table, and Caleb took the chair beside her. Other people joined them, board members, investors, a silver-haired man who Elena introduced as her CFO. They all made polite conversation, but Caleb caught the sidelong glances, the barely concealed curiosity. Dinner was served, some kind of chicken with asparagus and potatoes that tasted good but felt too fancy. Caleb used the wrong fork twice and didn't care. Elena kept her hand on his arm, a constant reminder that she wanted him there. Then the speeches started. The silver-haired CFO went first, talking about quarterly earnings and market expansion. An investor spoke about innovation and disruption. Caleb zoned out, watching Elena instead. She looked calm, composed, but her fingers tapped against her wheelchair's armrest, the only sign of nerves. Finally, someone introduced her. Elena Voss, CEO of Voss Technologies. The room erupted in applause. Elena wheeled up to the microphone set up on the stage, and Caleb felt a surge of pride watching her move with absolute confidence. Thank you, she said, and the room quieted immediately. I'll keep this brief because I know you're all here for the open bar more than my speeches. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Laughter rippled. 7 years ago, I almost died in a car accident. The doctors told me I'd never walk again, and they were right. But they were wrong about something else. They thought my career was over, that running a tech company from a wheelchair was impossible. She paused. This year, Voss Technologies reached $3.2 billion in revenue. We expanded into 3 new markets. We hired 400 new employees. And we did all of it because I refused to let anyone tell me what I couldn't do. More applause. Caleb watched her command the room, saw the way everyone leaned forward slightly, hanging on her words. But success isn't just about numbers or market share. It's about the people who show up every day and choose to take risks, to be vulnerable, to try something they're not sure will work. Her eyes found Caleb's across the room. Her eyes. It's about having the courage to say yes to things that scare you, to let people in even when it would be safer to stay closed off. Caleb's throat tightened. So thank you to our partners, our investors, our team members who make this company what it is. And thank you to everyone who's ever told me I couldn't do something. You gave me the motivation to prove you wrong. Here's to another year of innovation, growth, and taking chances on things that matter. She raised her water glass. The room followed suit, champagne flutes lifted in a glittering wave. When Elena returned to the table, Caleb stood and pulled her chair into position. She looked up at him, and he saw the question in her eyes. That was for me, he said quietly. The last part, maybe, definitely. He sat back down. You're terrifying, you know that? Good terrifying or bad terrifying? Haven't decided yet. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Dancing started. Elena couldn't participate, but insisted Caleb didn't have to sit it out on her account. He stayed anyway, keeping her company while other couples swirled across the floor. Then someone approached their table, a man in his 50s with expensive suit and a practiced smile. Elena, good to see you. He extended his hand. Marcus Chen, Pacific Northwest Business Journal. Mind if I ask a few questions? Elena's expression didn't change, but Caleb felt her stiffen beside him. Marcus, I didn't realize press was invited tonight. Just covering the tech industry gala. Our readers love this stuff. His eyes shifted to Caleb. And this must be your date. That's new. You usually fly solo to these events. This is Caleb Hayes, Elena said evenly. And we're not doing interviews tonight. Now, just a quick comment. Our readers would love to know. Marcus. Elena's voice went cold. Not tonight. Heck. The journalist smiled like she hadn't spoken. How about you, Caleb? What do you do? How'd you meet Elena? Lucky. Caleb opened his mouth, but Elena cut him off. This conversation is over. Please respect our privacy. Come on, Elena. The public has a right. They have a right to nothing about my personal life. She wheeled back slightly. Now, if you'll excuse us. Marcus' chin didn't move. So it's serious then? The billionaire CEO and the... What was it you do again? Something snapped in Caleb. He stood, using his full height. She asked you to leave. So leave. The journalist's eyes widened slightly. For a moment, Caleb thought he might push back. Then Marcus smiled, pulled out his phone, and snapped a photo before walking away. Damn it, Elena muttered. What? That photo. It'll be online within an hour. She rubbed her forehead. I'm sorry. I should have warned you this might happen. You did warn me. I just didn't expect it to feel so invasive. Welcome to my life. She looked exhausted suddenly. You want to get out of here? Absolutely. They made their excuses and left early. Richard was waiting with the town car. As they pulled away from the hotel, Caleb saw camera flashes behind them. More photographers, more strangers documenting their lives. Elena's hand found his in the dark interior of the car. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. This is what you said would happen. Knowing it and experiencing it are different things. Yeah, they are. Caleb squeezed her hand. But I'm still here. They drove in silence for a while. Then Elena said, Do you want to come up to my place? We can talk or not talk. Or you can just leave if you need space to process all this. Caleb thought about it. He thought about going home to his empty apartment, about overthinking everything that had happened tonight, about the photo that was probably already circulating online, about strangers making assumptions about who he was and what he wanted. Yeah, he said, I'll come up. But Elena's apartment, penthouse actually, was nothing like Caleb expected. He'd braced himself for sterile corporate minimalism, all glass and chrome. Instead, it was warm. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, bookshelves packed with actual books, framed photos on the walls, Elena at various ages with people who must be family and friends. Nothing ostentatious, nothing screaming wealth. You look surprised, Elena said, wheeling toward the kitchen. I expected something different. More billionaire, less human? Something like that. She pulled a bottle of wine from a rack. My decorator wanted to do this whole modern luxe thing. I fired him and did it myself. This is my space. I wanted it to actually feel like home. She poured 2 glasses, handed him one. You can take off the jacket. Get comfortable. Caleb shrugged out of the borrowed suit jacket, loosened his tie. Elena watched him with something like amusement. What? He asked. You really do hate formal wear. It's like wearing a straitjacket made of politeness. She laughed, really laughed. That's the best description I've ever heard. They sat in her living room, Elena in her wheelchair positioned by the couch, Caleb stretched out on the cushions. The city sparkled below through floor-to-ceiling windows, but inside it was quiet, peaceful. Thank you, Elena said after a while. For tonight, for standing up to Marcus, for not running when this got real. You keep thanking me like I'm doing you some huge favor. You are. Most people wouldn't choose this. The scrutiny, the attention, the complications. Caleb set down his wine glass. Can I tell you something? Always. I've spent 5 years building a life that's safe, predictable. I wake up, I go to work, I come home to Lily. Every decision I make is about stability, keeping her fed, keeping her happy, making sure nothing rocks the boat. He looked at Elena, and then you showed up, and made me realize that safe doesn't mean alive. Caleb, I'm not done. He shifted forward. That speech you gave tonight about taking risks, about choosing things that scare you, that's what this is for me. You're what scares me. Not because you're rich or successful, but because you make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Elena's eyes were bright. Like what? Like waking up excited instead of just functional. Like having conversations that matter instead of just making small talk. Like feeling like I'm part of something bigger than just getting through the day. She reached for his hand. You make me feel that too. They sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, the city quiet around them. Then Caleb's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. You should check that, Elena said. He pulled out his phone. 15 missed calls from Maya. A string of increasingly frantic texts. Maya. Caleb. Call me now. Maya. Are you okay? Maya. Why is your photo all over Twitter with Elena Voss? Maya. Elena Voss? The Elena Voss? Maya. You have approximately 5 minutes to call me before I drive to your apartment and break down the door. Caleb showed Elena the screen. She winced. I should have told Maya the truth earlier. This is my fault. I'll call her. He stood, moved toward the windows for some semblance of privacy. Maya answered on the first ring. What the hell, Caleb? I can explain. You're dating Elena Voss. Elena. Voss. The billionaire CEO Elena Voss. The woman who was on the cover of Fortune last month. That's who I set you up with, and you didn't think to mention that you knew. I didn't know until a few days ago. She kept it quiet. Oh my... Maya made a strangled sound. Okay. Start from the beginning. How did you not know? So Caleb told her about the coffee dates and the park walks, about meeting Lily, about the conversation where Elena finally revealed the truth. Maya listened in increasingly stunned silence. So you went to this gala thing tonight, Maya said finally, and now there are photos of you two all over social media, photos that make it very clear you're together. Yeah. And you're okay with that? I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow when I've had time to process. He glanced back at Elena, who was scrolling through her own phone with a tense expression. But I'm not running away if that's what you're asking. Caleb, this is going to get complicated. I know. People are going to say things, make assumptions. Lily might hear stuff at school. I know that too. Maya sighed. You really like her, don't you? Yeah, I really do. Then I'm happy for you. And terrified, but mostly happy. A pause. Is she good to you? Does she treat you right? Caleb looked at Elena, at the way she was chewing her bottom lip while reading something on her screen, at the vulnerability in every line of her posture. She's the most honest person I've ever met, he said quietly, even when it costs her something. Good. That's good. Maya's voice softened. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt. I'll try it, T. After he hung up, Caleb returned to the couch. Elena looked up from her phone. How bad? He asked. The Business Journal posted their article an hour ago. Mystery Man sweeps Elena Voss off her wheels is the actual headline. She grimaced. I'm sorry, the editor is usually better than that. What else? Twitter's having opinions. Most people think you're attractive in a rugged sort of way. A few think you're using me for money. Someone started a betting pool on how long we'll last. She set down her phone. Standard internet garbage. You're handling this better than I expected. I've had practice. And honestly, I don't care what strangers think. She met his eyes. I care what you think. Mom, I think this is insane. I think we're probably both making a huge mistake, and I think I don't want to be anywhere else right now. Elena smiled, small and real and just for him. Good answer. They talked until 2 in the morning, until Caleb's eyes were drooping and Elena had covered 3 separate yawns. He should have left, should have gone home and gotten some sleep before Lily woke up demanding Saturday morning pancakes. But he stayed a little longer, sitting on Elena's couch, while she told him about her plans to expand into renewable energy tech, about the board member who kept trying to push her toward a merger she didn't want, about the small private fear that maybe she'd built an empire but lost herself somewhere in the process. I don't think you're lost, Caleb said. I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. How can you be sure, Because you're here, with me. Choosing this, even though it's messy and complicated and probably going to make your life harder. That's not the choice of someone who's lost. Elena reached across the space between them, cupped his face in her hand. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just too tired to lie to myself anymore. Then we're both too tired for our own good. Shit. He left around 3, Richard driving him home through empty streets. His apartment felt too quiet after the warmth of Elena's place. He checked on Lily, still fast asleep, surrounded by her army of stuffed animals, and finally let himself collapse into bed. His phone buzzed one last time. Elena, thank you for tonight, for all of it. Caleb, stop thanking me. I wanted to be there. Elena, still, it mattered. Caleb, you matter. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her final message came through. Elena, you matter too, more than you know. Caleb fell asleep with his phone in his hand, thinking about a woman who ran a billion-dollar empire but still got nervous before giving speeches, who was terrified of being seen as weak, but had shown him more strength than anyone he'd ever met. He didn't know that tomorrow the photos from the gala would go viral. He didn't know that reporters would track down his address, his workplace, even the elementary school Lily attended. He didn't know that the next few weeks would test every assumption he'd ever made about privacy, dignity, and what it meant to love someone in the public eye. All he knew was that somewhere across the city, Elena Voss was probably lying awake too, wondering if she'd made the right choice by letting him in. And for tonight, that was enough. The first article appeared on Saturday morning while Caleb was making pancakes. His phone started buzzing before 7, messages piling up from numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored them until Lily wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Daddy, your phone won't stop beeping. I know, sweetheart. It's just work stuff. The lie tasted bitter, but he wasn't ready to explain this to a 6-year-old. You want blueberries in your pancakes? Yes, please. Can Elena come over today? Caleb flipped a pancake, buying himself a moment. Maybe not today. She's busy with work. She's always busy with work. You said that last time, too. Adults have a lot of responsibilities. Lily climbed onto her chair, swinging her legs. Is Elena your girlfriend? The spatula nearly slipped from Caleb's hand. What makes you ask that? You smile different when you talk about her, like how Uncle Marcus smiles when he talks about Aunt Sophie. She tilted her head, studying him with unsettling perception. And you wear your nice shirt when you see her. I wear nice shirts for lots of things. Not really. Mostly you wear the blue one with the hole in the sleeve. Caleb set the pancakes in front of her. Eat your breakfast. So is she. He sat down across from his daughter, wondering how a 6-year-old had cornered him more effectively than any adult ever had. Yeah, I think she is. Lily grinned, syrup already dripping down her chin. Good. I like her. She doesn't talk to me like I'm stupid. Nobody should talk to you like you're stupid. Lots of people do. But Elena's nice, and she has a cool chair. Lily took a massive bite of pancake. Can we invite her to my birthday party? Your birthday's not for 3 months. So? I'm planning ahead. You always say planning ahead is smart. Caleb's phone buzzed again. Then again. He finally picked it up and scrolled through the notifications. Texts from Maya, from Marcus, from guys on his construction crew. Facebook friend requests from strangers. Twitter mentions he didn't know how to access because he'd never actually used the account he'd made years ago. And then he saw the article. Pacific Northwest Business Journal had posted it at 6 a.m. The headline was worse than Elena had warned. Seattle billionaire, Elena Voss steps out with mystery construction worker. Below it, a photo from the gala, Caleb in his borrowed suit, Elena in her midnight blue gown, their hands intertwined on the table. They looked happy. They also looked like they belonged in completely different worlds. He clicked through to read it. The article was short, speculative, filled with questions about who he was and whether this was serious or just a fling. They'd identified him by name, Caleb Hayes, 32, construction worker, single father. They'd even found his company, mentioned that he worked residential framing for Morrison & Sons Construction. His stomach turned. Daddy, you okay? He looked up to find Lily watching him with concern. Yes, sweetheart, I'm fine. You look mad. Not mad, just thinking. He set the phone face down on the table. Finish your pancakes. We've got errands to run today. But the errands would have to wait. By noon, there were 3 reporters camped outside his apartment building. Caleb spotted them from the window. People with cameras and notebooks, looking bored but determined. One of them saw him looking and immediately started taking photos. He stepped back from the window. Why are those people outside? Lily asked, pressing her face to the glass. They're just... Caleb's mind raced. They're doing a story about the neighborhood, nothing important. Can I go say hi? No. The word came out sharper than he intended. Sorry. They're working. We shouldn't bother them. His phone rang. Elena's name on the screen. Hey, he answered, moving into his bedroom for privacy. Have you seen them yet? Her voice was tight. The reporters? Yeah. There are 3 outside my building right now. I'm so sorry. I've got my legal team drafting cease and desist letters, but they can stand on public property. There's nothing we can actually do unless they trespass or harass you directly. She paused. Are you okay? Honestly, not really. I can't leave my apartment without being photographed. Lily keeps asking questions I don't know how to answer, and apparently the entire internet has opinions about whether I'm using you for money. Ignore the internet. It's full of people with nothing better to do than tear down strangers. Easy for you to say. You're used to this. That doesn't make it easier. It just means I'm better at hiding how much it bothers me. Elena's voice softened. Do you want me to come over? I can have Richard bring me... No, that'll just make it worse. More photos, more speculation. Caleb sat on the edge of his bed. I need to think. Bit pasiki. Nisam bought. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Elena said, Are you having second thoughts? I'm having every thought possible right now. That's not an answer. I know. He rubbed his face. I just need some space to figure this out, to explain it to Lily, to deal with my crew giving me shit on Monday when I show up to work. Okay? Her voice had gone flat. Take whatever time you need. Elena. No, it's fine. This is what I was afraid of, that the reality would be too much. She took a breath. I'll give you space. But Caleb, don't disappear without telling me. If you're done, have the courage to say it. I'm not done. I'm just overwhelmed. Then call me when you're less overwhelmed. She hung up before he could respond. Caleb sat there staring at his phone, feeling like he'd just failed some test he didn't know he was taking. He wanted to call her back, to explain that he wasn't running away, just trying to catch his breath. But what would he say? That he couldn't handle the pressure? That he'd underestimated what dating a billionaire would actually mean? A knock on his bedroom door. Maya's voice. Caleb, you in there? What? Woo, yes, yeah. He opened the door to find his sister standing in his living room, Lily on the couch watching cartoons. When did you get here? 5 minutes ago. Used my spare key when you didn't answer. Maya crossed her arms. We need to talk. They talked in the kitchen while Lily was distracted. Maya had seen the articles, the photos, the comment sections spiraling into speculation and judgment. She'd also fielded calls from their mother, who lived in Arizona and had somehow found out her son was dating a billionaire before he'd had a chance to mention it. Mom wants you to call her, Maya said. She's convinced you're being taken advantage of. That's rich. Elena's the one getting harassed because she dared to date someone who isn't rich. You're both getting harassed. That's the problem. Maya leaned against the counter. Look, I love Elena. I wouldn't have set you up if I didn't think she was good people. But this is only going to get harder. You need to decide if you're in this for real or if you're going to bail before Lily gets more attached. Lily already likes her. Exactly. So what are you going to do? Caleb didn't have an answer. He spent the rest of the weekend hiding in his apartment, ordering delivery instead of grocery shopping, keeping Lily entertained with movies and craft projects. The reporters eventually left, but he knew they'd be back. This was just the beginning. Monday morning arrived too fast. Caleb dropped Lily at school early, hoping to avoid the other parents. No such luck. Three mothers were clustered by the entrance, and their conversation stopped the moment they saw him. "Morning," he said, trying for normal. "Morning, Caleb." Sarah Martinez, PTA president, gave him a tight smile. "Big weekend?" "Just the usual." "Really?" "Because I saw some interesting photos online." Her tone was pleasant, but her eyes were sharp. "You didn't mention you were dating Elena Voss." "It's new, still figuring things out." "And Voss. She seems very successful." This from Jennifer Park, whose daughter was in Lily's class. "Must be nice dating someone with that kind of money." The implication hung in the air. Caleb felt his jaw tighten. "It's nice dating someone who treats me well and makes me happy. The money's irrelevant." "Of course." Sarah's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We're just surprised. You always seem so focused on Lily. We didn't realize you had time for a social life. Everybody needs a life outside their kids." "True, though some of us don't have billionaire nannies to help out." Caleb opened his mouth to respond, but Lily came running up, backpack bouncing. "Bye, Daddy. Love you." "Love you too, sweetheart." He kissed her forehead, shot the mothers one last look, and left before he said something he'd regret. Work was worse. The crew had seen everything: photos, articles, comment sections debating whether he was a gold digger or just incredibly lucky. Marcus pulled him aside the moment he arrived at the job site. "So, Elena Voss, don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just saying, that's a hell of a catch." Marcus grinned. "You hitting that?" "I'm not having this conversation." "Come on, man. You show up in a suit at some fancy gala, your arm around a woman who could buy and sell all of us 10 times over, and you don't expect questions?" "I expect my friends to mind their own business." "We are minding our business. Your business is our entertainment." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Seriously, though, how'd you land her?" "I didn't land anyone. We met, we liked each other. We're seeing where it goes." "And the wheelchair thing doesn't bother you?" Caleb turned to face him fully. "Why the hell would it bother me?" "I don't know, man. Some guys might find it weird. Then some guys are idiots." Caleb grabbed his tool belt. "Can we work now? Or are we spending the whole day gossiping like we're in middle school?" The rest of the crew took the hint and backed off, but Caleb could feel their eyes on him all day. Every time he pulled out his phone to check messages, every time he took a break, he knew they were speculating, making assumptions, treating him differently because suddenly he wasn't just Caleb the framer. He was Caleb who dated the billionaire. His phone buzzed around lunch. Not Elena. She'd kept her word about giving him space. Instead, an unknown number with a 206 area code. "Hello? Mr. Hayes? This is Amanda Foster from Seattle Scene Magazine. I'd love to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Elena Voss." "Not interested." He hung up. It rang again immediately. Different number, same request. Then again, and again. By Tuesday, Caleb had blocked 15 numbers. By Wednesday, reporters had tracked down his mother in Arizona, and she'd called him in tears asking why strangers were asking about his childhood and whether he'd ever shown signs of being opportunistic. By Thursday, someone posted his address online, and he found 3 packages on his doorstep, one containing a book about gold diggers, one with a congratulations card signed by someone he'd never met, and one that was just a box of condoms with a note saying, "Enjoy the ride." Friday night, Caleb sat in his apartment after Lily was asleep, staring at his phone. He hadn't talked to Elena in 6 days, hadn't seen her, hadn't heard her voice. Just a few texts back and forth, surface-level check-ins that felt hollow. "Elena, how are you holding up?" Caleb, "Managing. You?" Elena, "Same. Work is busy." Caleb, "Yeah." He wanted to call her, wanted to hear her voice, to apologize for pulling away, to tell her he missed her. But every time he picked up the phone, he thought about the reporters, the judgment, the way people looked at him now. Like he was a story instead of a person. His phone rang. Maya. "You're being an idiot," she said without preamble. "Hello to you too." "I mean it, Caleb. You're letting these people win. You found someone who makes you happy, and you're throwing it away because strangers have opinions? It's not that simple. It really is. You either want to be with her or you don't. Everything else is just noise. The noise is affecting Lily. The other parents are treating me like I'm using Elena for money. My crew thinks I'm a joke. Some creep sent condoms to my apartment. So ignore them. Who cares what they think? I care. I have to live in this city, work with these people, send my daughter to school with their kids. Maya was quiet for a moment. Has Elena called you? We've texted. But has she called? Asked to see you? I told her I needed space. And she gave it to you, like an adult, like someone who respects your boundaries. Maya's voice gentled. Caleb, she's waiting for you to decide, to choose her despite all this garbage. But she won't push because she's terrified you'll choose the easy path instead. There is no easy path. There's the path where you hide from the hard stuff and lose the first real thing you've had in years. And there's the path where you fight for it. A pause. Which one are you taking? After they hung up, Caleb sat in the dark living room thinking about paths and choices and courage. He thought about Elena's speech at the gala, about taking risks on things that scared you, about choosing vulnerability even when it would be safer to stay closed off. He thought about the first time they'd met, when she'd offered him an easy exit and he'd stayed anyway. At midnight, he finally called her. She answered on the second ring. Caleb, I miss you. The words came out rough. I've been sitting here for 6 days trying to convince myself that walking away would be easier, and I can't do it. I miss you. Silence. Then, I miss you too. Can I see you tomorrow? I have a board meeting in the morning, but I'm free after 2. The park? Our usual spot? I'll be there, Maud. They talked for another hour, not about the reporters or the articles or the strangers with opinions. They talked about Lily's upcoming school play, about a problem Elena was having with a vendor, about nothing and everything. When they finally said goodnight, Caleb felt lighter than he had in days. Saturday afternoon found him waiting on the bench overlooking the Sound, the same spot where Elena had asked him to tell her something true. He saw her coming down the path, Richard walking a respectful distance behind, and his chest tightened. She looked tired. Beautiful, but tired. Hi, she said, positioning her wheelchair beside the bench. Hi. He wanted to reach for her hand, but wasn't sure if he'd earned that right back yet. Thank you for coming. Of course. She studied his face. You look like you haven't been sleeping. Neither have you. Board meetings and crisis management, my favorite combination. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Richard's going to give us some space. He'll be by the parking lot if we need him. They sat in silence for a moment, watching a ferry cross the water. Silence for about. Gulls wheeled overhead, crying. Everything felt fragile, like the wrong word could shatter whatever they still had. I'm sorry, Caleb said finally. For pulling away. For making you feel like you were too much to handle. You don't have to apologize for needing space. Yeah, I do. Because it wasn't really about space. It was about being scared. He turned to face her. I was scared of the attention, scared of what people would say, scared that I'd screw this up and hurt Lily in the process. So I did what I always do when I'm scared. I retreated. Elena's expression softened. That's honest. I'm trying to be. He took a breath. The last week has been hell. Reporters calling, people I barely know asking invasive questions, strangers sending me things to my apartment. I felt like I was losing control of my own life. I know the feeling, but the worst part wasn't any of that. The worst part was not talking to you, not seeing you, trying to convince myself I could just go back to how things were before. He finally reached for her hand. I can't, Elena. I don't want to. She laced her fingers through his. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'm done hiding, done letting other people's opinions dictate how I live my life, done pretending this isn't the most real thing I've felt in years. He met her eyes. I'm all in, if you'll still have me. Elena's breath caught. You're sure? Because this isn't going to get easier. The media attention will die down eventually, but there will always be people who question us, who think you're with me for the wrong reasons, or that I'm slumming it by dating someone who works with his hands. Let them think whatever they want. I know the truth. What's the truth? That you make me feel alive. That when I'm with you, I'm not just going through the motions. I'm actually living. That's worth more than any amount of peace and quiet. She smiled. really smiled, the kind that transformed her whole face. You're sure about this? About stepping into my world fully? Because there's an event next month and another one in December. And if we're doing this for real, I want you there. Not hiding, not making excuses. Actually there, by my side. I'll be there. Borrowed suit and all. We'll get you a real suit. I don't need... Caleb, let me buy you a suit. Consider it an investment in not having to watch you tug at an uncomfortable collar all evening. He laughed despite himself. Fine, one suit, but I'm drawing the line at a tuxedo. We'll negotiate some. They stayed on that bench for hours, talking through everything that had happened over the past week. Elena told him about the angry emails from board members who thought his presence at the gala was unprofessional, about the investors who'd called asking if she was having a crisis, about the surprisingly supportive message from her CFO saying it was about time she let someone past her walls. Caleb told her about the school parents, the work crew, his mother's tears, about the moment he'd realized that walking away would hurt more than staying ever could. I talked to Lily, he said, told her that we're together, that she might hear things from other kids, that people might ask questions. How'd she take it? She wanted to know if you were coming to her birthday party in February. When I said probably, she started planning the menu around what you'd like. Elena's eyes glistened. She's amazing. She is, and she adores you. He squeezed her hand. But I need you to understand, she comes first, always. If this ever affects her negatively, if the attention or the pressure becomes too much for her, I'll have to make different choices. I would never ask you to choose between us. Lily should come first. Elena's voice was firm. That's not negotiable. Good. Then we're on the same page. The sun was starting to set, painting everything gold and pink. Elena checked her phone, frowned. What's wrong? There's a situation at the office. One of our servers is down and the team can't figure out why. She looked at him apologetically. I need to go handle this. It's fine. Go. You could come with me if you want. It's probably going to take a few hours. And you'd just be sitting around. But I'll come. Okay. Really? It's going to be boring. Just me yelling at engineers and stress-eating vending machine snacks? I want to see you in your element. And I'm curious what Elena in crisis mode looks like. She smiled. Best done? Prepare yourself. It's not pretty. Caleb followed her to Voss Technologies headquarters in his truck, parking in the visitor lot while Elena went through the executive entrance. The building was sleek glass and steel, humming with quiet efficiency even on a Saturday evening. Security waved them through after Elena showed her ID. The ride up to the executive floor was silent, except for the elevator's soft chime. Elena's fingers drummed against her wheelchair's armrest, nervous energy barely contained. When the doors opened, she rolled out with purpose. Conference room 3, she told Richard. Get the server team in there. I want Jameson, Rodriguez, and whoever was on duty when this started. Yes, ma'am. Caleb followed her down a hallway lined with glass-walled offices. A few employees looked up from their desks, did double takes when they saw him trailing behind their CEO. Elena didn't slow down. The conference room was already filling with people when they arrived. 6 engineers, all looking stressed, laptops open and displaying screens Caleb couldn't begin to understand. They straightened when Elena wheeled in. Talk to me, she said without preamble. What happened, and where are we now? A woman in her 30s with bright purple hair spoke up. Server cluster in our Seattle facility went down at 1400 hours. We've been running diagnostics for 3 hours, but can't isolate the cause. Backup systems are handling the load, but we're vulnerable if anything else fails. Client impact? Minimal so far. A few slowdowns, nothing catastrophic. But if the backups fail, they won't fail. What about the logs? That's the weird part. A younger guy, barely out of college by the look of him, pulled up a screen. The logs show normal operation right up until the crash. No warnings, no gradual degradation, just instant failure. Elena wheeled closer, studying the screen. Her whole demeanor had changed. This was the woman who'd built a billion-dollar company, who commanded rooms full of investors and board members. Every question was sharp, every observation precise. Caleb stood near the back, watching her work. She was brilliant, not just smart, but strategically brilliant, able to see patterns and connections the engineers were missing. Within 20 minutes, she'd identified 3 potential causes and assigned teams to investigate each one. Rodriguez, you're on hardware. Physical inspection of the entire cluster. Jameson, dig into the software. I want every line of code reviewed. Purple hair? Stephanie, the woman supplied. Stephanie, you're on network. I want to know if this was an external attack or internal failure. Elena checked her watch. I want updates every 30 minutes. We're not leaving until this is fixed. The engineers scattered. Elena turned to find Caleb still standing there. Sorry, she said. This is probably incredibly boring for you. Are you kidding? That was amazing. What was? What is? Watching you take control. You didn't panic, didn't blame anyone, just got straight to solving the problem. He moved closer. This is what you do every day? More or less, though usually without an audience. She gestured to an empty chair. You can sit. This might take a while. He sat. For the next 4 hours, Caleb watched Elena manage a crisis with the kind of calm competence that made it look easy. She cycled between sharp and encouraging, demanding results but never cruel, pushing her team while making sure they took breaks. Around 9 p.m., Stephanie burst back into the conference room. We found it. External DDoS attack. Pretty sophisticated. Someone wanted us offline. Elena's expression hardened. Trace it. Already working on it. But boss, this wasn't random. Someone specifically targeted our infrastructure. Competitors? Or someone with a grudge? Stephanie glanced at Caleb, then back to Elena. The timing is suspicious, right after you went public with your relationship. The room went quiet. Elena's jaw clenched. You think someone did this to mess with me personally? I'm saying it's possible. We've had attempted attacks before, but nothing this coordinated. This feels personal. Caleb felt his stomach drop. This was his fault. His presence in her life had made her vulnerable. Trace it, Elena said again, and lock down our systems. I want triple redundancy on everything critical. If someone wants to play games, they're going to find out I don't lose. Stephanie nodded and left. The other engineers followed, leaving Elena and Caleb alone in the conference room. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For this. For making you a target. Elena wheeled toward him, eyes fierce. Don't you dare apologize for something a criminal did. But if you hadn't what? Been photographed with me? Existed in my life? Well, Caleb, people have been trying to undermine me since the day I took over this company. Because I'm a woman, because I'm in a wheelchair, because I refuse to play by the rules. This has nothing to do with you. Stephanie said the timing, is suspicious, yes, but that doesn't make it your fault. She grabbed his hand. I won't let you take responsibility for someone else's malice. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Caleb said, Is this what your life is always like? Crisis after crisis, people attacking you, having to constantly prove yourself? More or less? How do you not lose your mind? Who says I haven't? She smiled grimly. I just hide it well. Meet. By midnight, the crisis was resolved. The attack had been traced to a shell company in Eastern Europe, likely hired guns rather than someone with a personal vendetta, which was somehow both better and worse. Security was tripled, systems were locked down, and Elena had sent her entire team home with orders to take Sunday off. Richard drove them to Elena's penthouse. Caleb should have gone home, should have relieved Maya from babysitting duty. But when Elena asked him to come up, he didn't hesitate. Her apartment felt like a sanctuary after the sterile conference room. She wheeled straight to the kitchen, pulled out a bottle of wine, and poured 2 very full glasses. To Saturday nights spent fighting cyber attacks, she said, raising her glass. To the woman who handles them like a boss. Well, they drank. Elena set down her glass and rubbed her temples. Headache? Caleb asked. Stress. It'll pass. He moved behind her, gently placed his hands on her shoulders. She tensed for a moment, then relaxed as he started working out the knots. You don't have to. I know. I want to. They stayed like that for several minutes, the city lights glittering below, the room quiet except for the occasional sigh as tension left her body. Finally, Elena reached up, covered his hands with hers. Thank you. for coming tonight, for staying through all of that. Where else would I be? Home, away from my chaos. Your chaos is better than anyone else's calm. She laughed softly. You say that now. Wait until you've sat through a few more emergency server meetings. I'll be there for those too. Elena turned her chair to face him. You mean that? Every word. She pulled him down, kissed him like she'd been waiting to do it all week. And maybe she had. Maybe they'd both been waiting, holding their breath, wondering if this fragile thing between them could survive reality. When they finally broke apart, Elena's eyes were bright. Stay tonight. I can't. Lily's with Maya, and I've already imposed on her enough this week. Then stay for a little while longer, please. So he stayed. They moved to the couch. Elena positioned beside it and talked until 2 in the morning. About the attack, about whether they'd ever find out who was really behind it, about the upcoming events Elena needed to attend, and whether Caleb was really ready for that level of exposure. There's a tech conference in 3 weeks, she said, in San Francisco. I'm giving the keynote. It'll be huge. 2,000 people, massive media coverage, all the major players in Silicon Valley. You want me there? I do. But I'll understand if it's too much too fast. Caleb thought about it. 3 weeks ago, he couldn't have imagined stepping into that world. Now, after everything they'd been through, after seeing her in action tonight, he couldn't imagine letting her face it alone. Book me a ticket, he said. Really? Really. Though, fair warning, I have no idea what people talk about at tech conferences. Neither do half the attendees. They just use a lot of buzzwords and hope no one notices. Then I'll fit right in. Elena smiled, that genuine smile he was learning to treasure. You're going to hate it. Probably, but I'll be there anyway. He left around 3, driving through empty Seattle streets back to his apartment. Maya was asleep on his couch, and he covered her with a blanket before checking on Lily. His daughter was sprawled across her bed, one arm around her stuffed triceratops, completely at peace. Caleb stood in her doorway for a long moment, thinking about the choice he'd made. To stay, to fight, to step into a world that didn't want him and refused to leave. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be more articles, more judgment, more people questioning his motives. But as he stood there watching his daughter sleep, he realized something important. Lily deserved to see her father choose love even when it was hard. She deserved to learn that sometimes the best things in life came with complications, and that didn't make them less worth having. And Caleb deserved to be happy. Not just functional, not just getting through the day, but actually happy. With a woman who challenged him, who showed him new worlds, who made him feel like he was enough exactly as he was. His phone buzzed softly. Elena, thank you for tonight, for all of it. Caleb, stop thanking me. Elena, never. You keep showing up when most people would run. That deserves recognition. Caleb, I show up because you're worth it. Elena, so are you. Caleb smiled at his phone in the dark hallway, then headed to bed. Tomorrow he'd deal with Maya's questions and Lily's excitement and the inevitable new round of online speculation. Tomorrow he'd face whatever came next. But tonight, he let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm of ordinary and extraordinary. Caleb still woke at 5:30 to get Lily ready for school, still spent his days on construction sites with sawdust in his hair and splinters in his fingers. But now there were also evenings at Elena's penthouse, quiet dinners where they talked about everything and nothing, mornings when he'd wake to find a good morning text already waiting on his phone. They learned each other's routines. Elena worked insane hours, often taking calls at midnight from offices in different time zones. Caleb had exactly 45 minutes between dropping Lily at school and getting to the job site. They carved out time anyway, lunch on Tuesdays when Elena's schedule allowed, Saturday mornings at the park, Sunday dinners where Elena would come to his apartment and Lily would monopolize the conversation with. Stories about school and dinosaurs and whatever new obsession had captured her attention that week. The media attention didn't disappear, but it shifted. The initial feeding frenzy died down when they stopped being mysterious. A few follow-up articles appeared, speculation about how serious they were, whether Elena was slumming it or Caleb was punching above his weight. Someone started a subreddit dedicated to analyzing their relationship. Caleb made the mistake of reading it once and never went back. They're arguing about whether you're too good for me or I'm using you, he told Elena over coffee one Tuesday. Can't seem to agree which narrative is more offensive. The internet thrives on false dichotomies. You're either a saint or a villain, never just a person. Elena stirred her coffee absently. I stopped reading about myself years ago. Highly recommend it. Probably smart. The conference is this Friday, she said, changing the subject. You still okay with going? Yeah, though I reserve the right to look completely lost during the technical presentations. Everyone looks lost during those. Half the speakers don't understand what they're talking about either. She smiled. We'll fly out Thursday night. Conference is Friday and Saturday. Fly back Sunday morning. I booked you a room at the hotel. You didn't have to do that. I know, but separate rooms means less speculation, and I thought you might appreciate the privacy. Caleb reached across the table, took her hand. Thank you for thinking of that. I'm trying to make this as painless as possible. It's not painful. It's just different. He squeezed her fingers. I'm getting used to different. Thursday afternoon, Caleb left work early to pack. Lily was going to Maya's for the weekend, and his daughter had very specific opinions about what he should bring. The blue shirt, she insisted, pulling it from his closet. It makes your eyes look nice. How do you know what makes my eyes look nice? Aunt Maya said so, and she's right about clothes stuff. Lily handed him the shirt. Are you going to see Elena? Yeah, sweetheart. It's a work trip for her, and I'm going along. Is she going to do a speech? A big one, in front of lots of important people. Lily's eyes went wide. Will you tell her I said good luck? I will. And tell her I drew her a picture. It's in my backpack. It's her in her cool chair fighting a dragon. Caleb smiled. She's going to love that. I know. Lily flopped on his bed. Daddy, do you love Elena? The question caught him off guard. He sat down beside his daughter, choosing his words carefully. I care about her very much. But do you love her? Like in the movies? What do you know about movies? I know that when people love each other, they say so, and they get married and live happily ever after. She tilted her head, studying him. Are you going to marry Elena? I don't know, Lily. We're still figuring things out. But you want to? Did he? The thought had crossed his mind. Late at night, early in the morning, during quiet moments when Elena laughed at something Lily said, or when she reached for his hand without thinking. The idea of forever didn't scare him the way it should have. Maybe someday, he said honestly. If she wants that too. She does, I can tell. Oh really? You're a mind reader now? I'm observant. That's what Mrs. Peterson says. I notice things. Lily sat up. She looks at you the way you look at me when I'm sleeping, like you're happy I exist. Caleb pulled his daughter into a hug, pressing his face into her hair. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You're just noticing now. The flight to San Francisco was smooth. First class, which still felt absurd to Caleb even though Elena had insisted. She worked on her laptop most of the flight, reviewing her keynote speech and making last-minute adjustments. Caleb read a book he'd been meaning to finish for 6 months and tried not to think about the fact that he was flying first class to a tech conference with a billionaire. Their hotel was in downtown San Francisco, all polished marble and understated luxury. Elena checked them in while Caleb stood awkwardly with their bags, feeling out of place among the tech executives and venture capitalists filling the lobby. Your room is 2847, Elena said, handing him a key card. Mine's 2850, just down the hall. We've got dinner reservations at 8 with some of my board members. That okay? Define okay, Assam. You'll hate it, but you'll be charming anyway because you're good at that. I'm really not. You are. You just don't realize it. She checked her phone. I need to prep for tomorrow. Want to meet in the lobby at 7:30? I'll be there. His room was nicer than anywhere he'd ever stayed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a bed that probably cost more than his truck, a bathroom with heated floors. Caleb dropped his bag and immediately felt like an imposter. His phone buzzed. Elena, you settling in okay? Caleb, my bathroom is bigger than Lily's bedroom. This is insane. Elena, get used to it. This is the cheap hotel. Caleb, there's a cheap version of this? Elena, remind me to take you to Tokyo sometime. That's where the real luxury is. Caleb, you're trying to corrupt me. Elena, is it working? Caleb, maybe a little. Dinner was exactly as painful as Caleb had anticipated. 6 board members, all men in their 50s and 60s, all regarding him with varying degrees of skepticism. They sat at a private table in a restaurant where the menu didn't have prices, and the portions were aggressively small. So Caleb, said Gerald Morrison, Elena's CFO. Construction, right? What kind of projects do you work on? Residential mostly, new builds, renovations, additions, whatever needs framing. Fascinating. Very hands-on work. The condescension was barely veiled. Caleb took a sip of water and reminded himself that Elena had warned him this would happen. It is. You get to see something go from plans on paper to an actual structure. Pretty satisfying. I imagine it's quite different from what Elena does, another board member chimed in. Thomas something. Caleb had already forgotten his last name. Completely different, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? If we did the same thing, we'd have nothing to talk about. Elena's hand found his under the table, squeezed gently. The conversation moved to business, quarterly projections, competitor analysis, market positioning. Caleb listened without pretending to understand most of it. He watched Elena instead, the way she commanded the conversation without raising her voice, the way the men deferred to her even when it clearly bothered them to do so. There's concern about the keynote tomorrow, Gerald said, cutting his microscopic piece of fish. Some board members feel you should address the recent security breach. We issued a statement. The situation is resolved. Yes, but the optics. The optics are fine, Gerald. We were attacked. We defended. We moved on. Dwelling on it makes us look weak. Some might say bringing personal matters into your public life makes us look weak. The table went quiet. Elena's grip on Caleb's hand tightened. Careful, she said, her voice pleasant but edged with steel. You're about to cross a line you won't be able to uncross. I'm simply expressing concern that some board members have raised. Your relationship has generated significant media attention, which affects the company's image. My relationship is not the company's business, and if any board member has a problem with who I choose to spend my personal time with, they're welcome to find another company to advise. Gerald held up his hands. No one's questioning your choices, Elena. We're just thinking about the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that Voss Technologies posted record profits last quarter while I was dating Caleb. So unless you have evidence that my personal life is negatively impacting our bottom line, I suggest we move on. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Then Thomas cleared his throat and changed the subject to something about cloud infrastructure, and the moment passed. But Caleb could feel the tension radiating from Elena, could see the tight set of her jaw. When dinner finally ended, they escaped to the lobby. Elena wheeled toward the elevators with purpose, Caleb keeping pace beside her. I'm sorry, she said once they were alone in the elevator. Gerald can be an ass, but that was out of line. It's fine. It's not fine. He basically implied you're bad for the company. Well, he implied I'm bad for your image. Different thing. Caleb leaned against the elevator wall. And maybe he's not wrong. I'm not exactly the partner people expect for a billionaire CEO. I don't care what people expect. I know. But your board does. Your investors do. All those people whose opinions actually matter for your company. The elevator reached their floor. Elena wheeled out, then stopped and turned to face him. You want to know whose opinion matters? Mine. And I think you're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Gerald and the rest of them can adapt or leave. You'd really risk your board over this? I'd risk a lot more than my board. She moved closer. You're not a liability, Caleb. You're the only person in my life who sees me instead of what I can do for them. That's worth more than any board member's approval. He wanted to kiss her. Would have if they weren't in a hotel hallway where anyone could see. Instead, he said, You're going to be amazing tomorrow. You'll be there? Front row? Wouldn't miss it. even if you don't understand half of what I'm talking about. Especially then, someone needs to look impressed, even when you lose the audience with the technical stuff. She laughed, tension finally breaking. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long. You too. And Elena? Yeah? Your board can go to hell. You're doing great. Friday morning arrived with California sunshine and Caleb's growing sense of being in over his head. The conference was held at the Moscone Center, a massive complex already filling with thousands of attendees by the time he arrived at 8. Everyone wore badges with their names and companies. Everyone seemed to know each other. Everyone belonged except him. He found Elena backstage, surrounded by tech journalists and conference organizers. She saw him and her whole expression changed, softening in a way that made his chest tight. You came early? She said, wheeling away from the crowd for a moment of relative privacy. Wanted to wish you luck before the chaos started. I don't need luck. I've got this speech memorized. Humor me anyway. She smiled. Okay, wish me luck. Yeah. Good luck. You're going to kill it. He pulled the folded drawing from his pocket. Lily wanted me to give you this. Elena unfolded the paper carefully. The drawing showed a figure in a wheelchair breathing fire at a dragon, both rendered in Lily's enthusiastic crayon technique. She said you're fighting a dragon, Caleb explained. I think the dragon represents your competitors, but she might have just really wanted to draw a dragon. Bull. It's perfect. Elena's eyes were bright. Tell her thank you. You can tell her yourself on Sunday. She's planning a full debriefing. I'm looking forward to it. A conference organizer approached, clipboard in hand. Ms. Voss, 5 minutes to curtain? Elena nodded, then looked back at Caleb. Front row, right? Front row. He found his seat just as the lights dimmed. The auditorium was packed, easily 2,000 people, all waiting to hear what Elena Voss had to say about the future of artificial intelligence and cloud computing. Caleb sat among CEOs and CTOs and people with job titles he couldn't pronounce, feeling completely out of his depth. Then Elena wheeled onto the stage, and everything else fell away. She commanded the room from her first word. No apologies, no self-deprecation, just absolute confidence as she laid out her vision for where technology was heading and how Voss Technologies was positioned to lead that charge. She spoke about innovation and risk-taking, about the importance of building tools that served people instead of just extracting value from them. Caleb understood maybe 40% of the technical content, but he understood the passion in her voice, the fierce intelligence behind every argument, the way she made complex ideas accessible without dumbing them down. He watched 2,000 people lean forward in their seats, hanging on her every word. This was her world. This was where she thrived, and somehow, impossibly, she'd chosen to let him into it. The speech ended to thunderous applause. Elena fielded questions for 20 minutes, handling everything from technical challenges to market competition with the same unshakable composure. When it was finally over and she wheeled off stage, Caleb was waiting in the wings. So? She said. How bad was it? Are you kidding? That was incredible. You had them eating out of your hand. The part about quantum computing integration was probably too technical. No one cared. They were too busy being amazed by everything else you said. He moved closer. You're really good at this, you know that? I've had practice. It's more than practice. You're a natural. He wanted to say more, wanted to tell her that watching her up there had made him realize just how extraordinary she was, how lucky he was that she'd chosen him. But a crowd was gathering, journalists wanting follow-up quotes, attendees hoping for a moment of her time. Go, Caleb said. Do your thing. I'll find you later. Lunch? 12:30? I'll be there. He spent the morning wandering the conference, sitting in on panels about topics he barely understood, collecting swag from vendor booths, and feeling generally useless. Around 11, his phone rang. Unknown number, San Francisco area code. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Hayes, this is Jennifer Wu from Tech Insider magazine. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Elena Voss. Caleb's jaw tightened. How'd you get this number? We're persistent. Look, I'm writing a profile piece on Ms. Voss, and it would really help to get your perspective. How you met, what attracted you to each other, Whether you're intimidated by her success, I'm not doing an interview, Che. Just a few questions. Our readers are really curious about. No. And don't call this number again. He hung up, blocked the number, and immediately texted Elena. Caleb. Reporter just called my cell. Tech Insider magazine. How did they get my number? Elena. They have ways. I'm sorry. Want me to have legal send them a cease and desist? Caleb. Will that actually stop them? Elena. Probably not, but it might slow them down. Caleb. Don't worry about it. I'll just keep blocking numbers. Elena. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You shouldn't have to deal with this. Caleb. It's fine. I can handle a few annoying phone calls. Elena. You shouldn't have to handle anything. This is my world bleeding into yours. Caleb. Our world now. Remember? The three dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. Elena. Yeah. Our world. Still getting used to that. They met for lunch at a restaurant near the conference center. Elena looked exhausted, her makeup not quite hiding the dark circles under her eyes. You okay? Caleb asked once they were seated. Just tired. I've done 6 interviews since the keynote, and 3 more are scheduled for this afternoon. She rubbed her temples. Sometimes I forget how draining this is. You could cancel them. Can't. This is part of the job, being available, being quotable, making sure Voss Technologies stays in the conversation. She managed a smile. It'll be over soon. Tomorrow's sessions are smaller, less intense. We can actually enjoy ourselves. Looking forward to it. A woman approached their table, mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Elena Voss. What a coincidence. Elena's expression went carefully neutral. Victoria, I didn't know you were attending. Wouldn't miss it. Your keynote was impressive. Very aspirational. Victoria's gaze shifted to Caleb. And you must be the famous boyfriend. I've seen the photos. Caleb Hayes. He didn't offer his hand. Victoria Chen, CEO of Quantum Dynamics. We're one of Elena's biggest competitors. She turned back to Elena. Though I suppose competitor is a generous term. We've been eating your lunch in the enterprise market for 6 months now. Your numbers don't support that claim. My numbers are private. Unlike some people, I don't feel the need to broadcast every metric to prove my worth. Victoria's smile sharpened. Speaking of broadcasting, how's the media attention treating you? Must be exhausting, having your personal life picked apart by strangers. I manage. I'm sure you do. You've always been good at managing difficult situations. Her eyes flicked to Caleb again. Though I have to wonder what your board thinks about this very public relationship. Some might see it as a distraction from the business. Elena's voice went cold. My board is fully supportive, as is everyone who actually matters. Of course. I'm just thinking about optics, a CEO, dating someone so far outside the industry, someone with no technical background or business experience. It raises questions about judgment. Caleb felt his temper flare. He opened his mouth to respond, but Elena beat him to it. Careful, Victoria. You're about to confuse your own insecurities with valid criticism. I'm not insecure. I'm realistic. This industry is brutal, and any perceived weakness gets exploited. You're giving your competitors ammunition. Then it's a good thing I've never been afraid of a fight. Elena wheeled back slightly. If you'll excuse us, we were trying to have lunch. Victoria's smile never wavered. Of course. Enjoy your meal. And Caleb, welcome to the Shark Tank. She walked away, leaving tension in her wake. Elena's hands were shaking slightly as she reached for her water glass. Sorry, she said. Victoria's been trying to undermine me for years. She can't stand that I'm more successful than her. She's wrong, you know, about the judgment thing. Is she? My board expressed the same concern last night. Clearly, there's a perception problem. The perception problem is that people can't imagine a successful woman dating someone who works with his hands. That's their issue, not yours. Elena looked at him across the table. It doesn't bother you? Being seen as a weakness in my armor? It bothers me that people think you need armor at all. But no, it doesn't bother me. Let them think whatever they want. Caleb leaned forward. I know what we have. You know what we have. Everyone else can speculate all they want. When did you get so confident about this? Around the time I realized that walking away from you would be the stupidest thing I've ever done. She smiled, really smiled, the kind that made everything else fade. You're good for me, you know that? You're good for me too. They finished lunch without further interruptions, then returned to the conference. Elena had panels and interviews. Caleb wandered some more, eventually finding a quiet corner where he could sit and check his phone. 23 missed calls, 14 voicemails, all from reporters, all wanting comments about his relationship with Elena Voss. He deleted them without listening. A text from Maya. How's San Francisco? Lily wants to know if you've seen the Golden Gate Bridge yet. Caleb. Haven't left the conference center. Tell her I'll take pictures tomorrow. Maya. She also wants to know if Elena liked her drawing. Caleb. Loved it. Said it was perfect. Maya. That kid is going to be insufferable when you get back. She's already planning what to draw next. Caleb. Let her draw whatever she wants. How's she doing? Maya. Good. Missing you, but having fun. We're making cookies later. Caleb. Don't let her eat all the dough. Maya. No promises. Caleb smiled at his phone, then looked up to find a man in his 30s watching him from across the lobby. The man had a camera around his neck and the calculating look of someone deciding whether to approach. Caleb stood and walked in the opposite direction. The last thing he needed was candid photos circulating online. That evening, there was a networking reception, hundreds of people drinking wine and making connections in a ballroom that cost more to rent for one night than Caleb made in 3 months. Elena was surrounded constantly, pulled from conversation to conversation, always gracious but clearly exhausted. Caleb stayed on the periphery, nursing a beer and trying not to feel like an outsider. A few people approached him, curiosity barely disguised as friendliness. He answered their questions with the minimum required politeness and escaped as soon as possible. Around 9, Elena found him on a balcony overlooking the city. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Needed some air, it's intense in there. She wheeled beside him, looking out at San Francisco's lights. You want to leave? Don't you need to stay? Network and schmooze and all that? I've networked enough for one lifetime. She reached for his hand. Let's get out of here. They escaped through a side entrance, Richard materializing with the town car before Elena even had to call. 20 minutes later, they were in North Beach, at a tiny Italian restaurant with checkered tablecloths and absolutely no tech industry presence. Better? Elena asked once they were seated. Much, though I feel underdressed. Caleb gestured to his button-down shirt. Everyone else is in suits. Everyone else can mind their own business. They ordered pasta and wine, and for the first time all day, Caleb felt like he could breathe. No cameras, no reporters, no one watching them or making assumptions. Just two people having dinner. I've been thinking, Elena said, twirling linguine on her fork, about what Victoria said. And Gerald. And everyone else who keeps implying you're somehow bad for me. Yeah? They're wrong. Completely, totally wrong. She set down her fork. You want to know what you've done for me? You've reminded me that there's life outside of quarterly earnings and board meetings. You've shown me what it's like to be valued for who I am instead of what I've built. You've made me laugh more in 3 months than I have in 3 years. Caleb felt his throat tighten. Elena, I'm not done. You've also challenged me, pushed back when I'm being unreasonable, called me out when I'm using work as an excuse to avoid actual feelings. You treat me like a person, not like a brand or a success story or a charity case. She met his eyes. So when people like Victoria suggest you're a weakness, they're idiots. You're the strongest thing in my life right now. He didn't know what to say, how to respond to that kind of raw honesty. I love you, he said instead. The words came out rough, unplanned. I didn't mean to. I wasn't looking for it. But I love you. Elena's breath caught. For a moment, she just stared at him, eyes wide. Then she said, I love you too. Have for weeks now. I was just too scared to say it. Scared of what? That you'd realize what a disaster I am and leave. That this would all become too much. That I'd wake up one day and you'd be gone because dating me isn't worth the hassle. Caleb reached across the table, took both her hands in his. I'm not going anywhere. Not for reporters or judgmental board members or competitors who think they know what's best for you. I'm here because I want to be, because you're worth every complicated moment. Even when my world is completely insane? Especially then. She smiled through tears she was trying not to let fall. We're really doing this, aren't we? Full commitment, no more holding back? Yeah, we really are. They finished dinner in a haze of new understanding. The words had been said, the commitment made. Everything felt different now, more real, more permanent, more frightening and exhilarating all at once. Walking back to the car, well, Caleb walking and Elena wheeling beside him, she said, "There's something I need to tell you." Okay. The board wants me to consider a merger. With a company based in London, it would mean spending significant time overseas, possibly relocating for a year or more. Caleb's stomach dropped. When were you going to mention this? I'm mentioning it now. And before you spiral, I'm not taking it. I already told Gerald no. Why? Because my life is in Seattle. Because I'm not interested in running someone else's company. And because she stopped her wheelchair, turned to face him. Because everything I care about is there, including you and Lily. You should make that decision based on what's best for your company, not because of us. What's best for my company is having a CEO who's actually happy instead of just successful. That's you. You make me happy. She took his hand. But I need you to be honest with me. If this gets harder, if the attention gets worse, if the pressure becomes too much, tell me. Don't just suffer through it. Same goes for you. If having me in your life makes things more complicated with your board or your investors or whoever else, you have to tell me. Deal. They returned to the hotel around 11. At the elevator, Elena said, "Stay with me tonight. I don't want to be alone." So Caleb followed her to her room, and they lay together on the oversized hotel bed, talking until exhaustion finally claimed them. They talked about Lily's upcoming birthday, about Elena's plans to expand into renewable energy, about the possibility of taking a real vacation instead of just traveling for work. "Where would you want to go?" Elena asked, her head on his shoulder. "I don't know. I've never really traveled outside the Pacific Northwest." "Never?" "Once to California for a work thing. That's it. We should change that. There's a whole world out there. As long as I can bring Lily for some of it. I don't want her to miss out. Of course, I wouldn't have it any other way." Elena shifted closer. "She's part of this too. Our life, our future, whatever that looks like." "Our future," Caleb repeated, testing the words. They felt good. They felt right. Saturday's sessions were easier. Smaller crowds, more technical discussions, less pressure. Caleb attended a panel on construction technology just to feel slightly less useless and actually learned some interesting things about 3D printed housing. Elena had meetings throughout the day but kept them short, determined to actually enjoy the trip instead of treating it as pure business. That evening they walked, Elena rolling, Caleb walking, along the Embarcadero as the sun set over the bay. Tourist couples took photos, street musicians played for tips. The world moved around them without demanding anything. "This is nice," Elena said. "Just existing. Not performing or networking or being on. We should do more of this." "Agreed. Though it's harder in Seattle, where everyone knows who I am. But then we'll find places where they don't. Quiet neighborhoods, hole-in-the-wall restaurants, parks that aren't on the tourist maps. You've clearly thought about this." "I think about a lot of things when it comes to you." He slowed his pace to match her rhythm, including the fact that I want this to last, not just through the exciting beginning phase, but through the boring everyday stuff too. "The everyday stuff is the best part," Elena said quietly. "That's what I've been missing, someone to share the mundane with." They stopped at Pier 39, watching sea lions bark and fight for position on the docks. The smell of fish and salt water hung heavy in the air. Tourists crowded around them, but for once no one paid them any attention, just two more people enjoying the view. "Thank you," Elena said. "For what?" "For coming with me. For supporting me even when this world makes no sense to you. For loving me despite all the complications." "The complications are part of the package. I knew that going in." "Did you, though? Did you really understand what you were signing up for? Caleb thought about it, about the reporters and the judgment and the constant scrutiny, about board members questioning his presence and competitors using him as ammunition, about the weird feeling of existing in two completely different worlds. No, he said honestly, I didn't fully understand, but I don't regret it, not for a second. Elena reached up, pulled him down, kissed him right there on Pier 39, with sea lions barking and tourists laughing and the San Francisco Bay spread out before them. And for that moment, everything was exactly as it should be. They flew back to Seattle on Sunday morning, both exhausted but content. Caleb went straight from the airport to Maya's house to pick up Lily, who launched herself at him the moment he walked through the door. Daddy, did you see the bridge? Did Elena do good at her speech? Did you bring me a present? Yes, yes, and yes. He pulled a small box from his bag, a Golden Gate Bridge snow globe he'd found at a tourist shop. For you. Lily shook it immediately, watching the fake snow swirl. It's perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Maya pulled him aside while Lily was distracted. You look different. Different how? Lighter, like you finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. She studied his face. Something happened in San Francisco. We told each other we loved each other. Maya's eyes widened. And it's real. We're really doing this. Caleb? His sister pulled him into a hug. I'm so happy for you. Thanks for setting us up, even though it was incredibly manipulative. The best things often are. She pulled back. How's she handling the public stuff, the attention? Better than I am, honestly. But we're figuring it out together. That night, after Lily was asleep, Caleb lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened over the past 3 months. From that first awkward coffee date to falling in love on a San Francisco pier. It felt impossible and inevitable all at once. His phone buzzed. Elena. Missing you already. Thank you again for this weekend. Caleb. Thank you for letting me be part of it. Elena. Want to have dinner this week? The three of us? Caleb. Lily would love that, so would I. Elena. Wednesday? Caleb. Perfect. He set down his phone, closed his eyes, and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. That love could survive board meetings and media scrutiny and two completely different worlds colliding. That choosing each other was enough. Somewhere across the city, Elena Voss was probably thinking the same thing. And that simple shared hope felt like the strongest foundation they could build on. Wednesday dinner became a disaster before it even started. Caleb got the call at 4 in the afternoon, right as he was leaving the job site. Elena's assistant, not Elena herself, which was the first bad sign. Mr. Hayes? This is Jennifer from Miss Voss's office. I'm calling to let you know that Miss Voss won't be able to make dinner tonight. An emergency board meeting was called for 6 p.m., and she needs to prepare. She couldn't call herself? She's already in meetings. She asked me to apologize and reschedule for Friday. Caleb hung up feeling something cold settle in his stomach. This was the third time in 2 weeks Elena had canceled. Always for legitimate reasons. Board meetings, investor calls, crisis management. Always with apologies delivered through assistance or brief texts. Always with promises to reschedule that sometimes happened and sometimes didn't. He picked up Lily from Maya's, drove home in silence. Is Elena coming over? Lily asked as they climbed the stairs to their apartment. Not tonight, sweetheart. She has to work. She's always working. Lily's voice was small, disappointed. Doesn't she want to see us anymore? Of course she does. She's just busy. Too busy for dinner? Caleb didn't have a good answer for that. He made mac and cheese from a box, helped Lily with her homework, read her 3 bedtime stories instead of the usual 2. After she was asleep, he sat on his couch staring at his phone, debating whether to call or text or just let it go. He texted, Caleb, hope the meeting goes well. We'll miss you tonight. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, at 11 p.m., his phone buzzed. Elena, I'm so sorry. This day has been hell. Can I make it up to you this weekend? Caleb, sure. Elena, you're upset. Caleb, just tired. We'll talk later. Elena, Caleb, please. I hate when things feel off between us. Caleb, then maybe we should talk about why they feel off. Elena, Okay, tomorrow? Lunch? Caleb, I'll be on a job site all day. How about after Lily goes to bed? Elena, I'll come to you. 8:30? Caleb, see you then. Thursday crawled by. Work was work. Framing, measuring, hammering, the physical labor that usually cleared his head, but today just gave him too much time to think. About how the last month had felt different, how Elena's texts came later and less frequently, how their dates kept getting postponed or cut short, how she seemed distracted even when they were together, her phone always buzzing with urgent matters that required immediate attention. He wanted to believe it was just a busy period at work, but something about the pattern felt familiar, like watching someone slowly pull away while insisting everything was fine. Elena arrived at 8:45, apologizing for being late before she'd even made it through the door. Investor call ran over. I'm sorry. It's fine. Caleb gestured to the couch. You want coffee or something? No, I'm good. She positioned her wheelchair in the living room, looking around like she was seeing his apartment for the first time in weeks. Maybe she was. Lily asleep? Yeah. She was disappointed about yesterday. I know, I'm sorry about that too. The board had an emergency meeting. You said. Caleb sat on the couch, leaving space between them that felt deliberate. Elena, what's going on? What do you mean? This. Us. You canceling plans, working constantly, barely being present even when we're together. It feels like you're pulling away. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful. I'm not pulling away. I'm just dealing with a lot at work. You're always dealing with a lot at work. That's not new. This is different. The board is pushing hard for the London merger. My CFO is threatening to resign if I don't at least consider it. We've got 3 major product launches happening simultaneously, and one of them is already behind schedule. She rubbed her temples. I'm drowning, Caleb, and I don't know how to balance everything. So you're choosing work. That's not fair, isn't it? 3 canceled dinners in 2 weeks, texts that take hours to answer. Last Sunday you had to leave brunch early because of some crisis that your team could have handled without you. He leaned forward. I'm not asking you to choose between me and your company. I'm asking you to make room for both. I'm trying. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like the moment things got real between us, you started finding reasons to keep your distance. Elena's expression hardened. You think I'm scared. I think you're used to being alone, used to not having to consider anyone else's needs or feelings. And now that you do, it's easier to retreat into work than figure out how to actually share your life. That's not... She stopped, jaw clenched. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Then help me understand. Talk to me instead of hiding behind your assistant and emergency board meetings. I'm not hiding, sis. You're absolutely hiding. Caleb stood, pacing. Every time we get close, every time things feel too real, you pull back. You manufacture crises or convince yourself that work needs you more than I do. But that's bullshit, Elena. Your team is capable. Your company will survive if you take an evening off. What won't survive is us if you keep pushing me away. She looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. You want to know the truth? I'm terrified. Every day I wake up wondering when you're going to realize this is too hard. That dating me comes with too much baggage. The media, the board, the constant scrutiny. That you'd be better off with someone normal who doesn't live under a microscope. So your solution is to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy? To pull away before I can leave? Maybe. I don't know. Her voice broke. I've never done this before, Caleb. I've never let someone matter this much. And it scares the hell out of me because I don't know how to be what you need while still being what my company needs. Caleb sat back down, this time closer to her. You want to know what I need? I need you to be honest. To show up when you say you will, or tell me when you can't. I need you to stop treating every moment of vulnerability like a weakness that needs to be hidden. He took her hand. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be here. Actually here, not just physically present while your mind is in a boardroom. What if I can't do that? What if work will always come first because that's who I am? Then you need to tell me that now. Because I can't keep doing this. Waiting for you to decide if I'm worth making time for. wondering if the next cancellation means we're done. He met her eyes. I love you, but I won't be someone's backup plan when work slows down. Elena was crying now, silent tears tracking down her face. I don't want to lose you. Then stop pushing me away. I don't know how to do this, how to balance everything, how to be a good CEO and a good partner and not completely fall apart in the process. You start by being honest about what you can and can't do. You delegate the things that don't require your personal attention. You set boundaries instead of letting work consume every spare moment. Caleb squeezed her hand. And you trust that I'm not going to bail the second things get hard. Because I'm in this, Elena. I've been in this since I stayed for coffee that first night. But I need you to be in it too. She wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. The board wants an answer about London by the end of the month. They're threatening to force a vote if I keep refusing to consider it. Do you want to go to London? No. But they think it's the right move strategically. What do you think? Yeah. I think they're trying to push me out. They've never been comfortable with a woman in a wheelchair running things. This merger would technically make me co-CEO, but we all know what that means. I'd be sidelined within a year. Then tell them no. Fire the ones who won't accept your decision and move on. It's not that simple. Why not? It's your company. You built it. If they can't respect your leadership, they don't deserve to be there. Elena laughed bitterly. You make it sound so easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's simple. They either support you or they don't. And if they don't, you find people who will. And what about us? If I dig in my heels and fight this battle, I'm going to have even less time. More emergency meetings, more crisis management. Can you handle that? Caleb was quiet for a moment, really thinking about it. Could he handle more of what the last month had been? More canceled plans and late-night work sessions and feeling like he came second to quarterly earnings reports? I can handle it if you're honest with me, he said finally. If you tell me when you're overwhelmed instead of disappearing. If you let me support you instead of trying to do everything alone. If you remember that we're supposed to be partners, which means sharing the hard stuff, not just the easy moments. I'm not good at sharing the hard stuff. Yeah, I've noticed. But you're going to have to learn if this is going to work. She looked at him for a long moment, something shifting behind her eyes. Then she said, I need to tell you something else. Caleb's stomach dropped. Okay. My father called yesterday. He wants to have dinner to meet you. Your father who you haven't spoken to in 3 years? That would be him. Elena's voice was flat. Apparently he read about us in Forbes and decided it was time to reconnect. What did you tell him? That I'd think about it, which is code for no, but I'm too much of a coward to say it directly. Why don't you want him to meet me? Because he'll try to use you against me. He'll make assumptions about why we're together, imply you're after my money, and generally be insufferable. She paused. And because part of me is afraid he'll be right, that you are too good to be true, and eventually you'll leave just like everyone else. I'm not everyone else. I know. Logically, I know that, but years of emotional damage aren't erased by logic. Caleb pulled her closer, wrapped his arms around her. She stiffened for just a moment before melting into the embrace. We're both a mess, he said into her hair. Both scared, both carrying baggage, both trying to figure out how to make this work. But at least we're a mess together. That's not particularly reassuring. It's honest, which is better than reassuring lies. No. They sat like that for a while, holding each other in the quiet apartment. Finally, Elena pulled back, wiped her eyes. I'm going to tell the board no, about London. If they don't like it, they can leave. You're sure? No, but I'm going to do it anyway. She took his hand, and I'm going to set better boundaries, delegate more. Actually take evenings off instead of just saying I will. I'll believe it when I see it. Fair. I haven't exactly earned your trust on that front. She managed a small smile. Will you give me another chance? To prove I can actually do this? Yeah, but Elena, this is it. I can't keep having this conversation every month. Either you're all in or you're not. I'm all in. I'm just figuring out what that looks like in practice. Then we'll figure it out together. Yeah. The next 2 weeks were different. Not perfect. Elena still worked insane hours and had to cancel one dinner when a server issue turned into a genuine emergency. But she called herself to cancel, explained what was happening, and made sure to reschedule within days instead of weeks. She started leaving work at reasonable hours twice a week, showing up at Caleb's apartment with takeout and stories about her day. She let him see her stressed and overwhelmed instead of pretending everything was fine. And she told the board no about London. 3 members resigned immediately. Gerald, her CFO, gave 2 weeks' notice with barely concealed satisfaction, probably already lining up a position with a competitor. The remaining board members scrambled to fill the gaps, and for a few days it looked like the whole company might implode from the internal chaos. But it didn't. Elena promoted from within, brought in fresh perspective, and somehow emerged stronger than before. "You were right," she told Caleb over dinner one Thursday, "about getting rid of people who don't support me. The new CFO actually listens when I explain my vision instead of just shooting it down." "How's it feel?" "Terrifying and liberating in equal measure." She took a sip of wine. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the company to fall apart, or the stock to tank, or something to prove I made a huge mistake. And if none of that happens, then I guess I'll have to accept that I made the right call." Lily wandered into the dining room, clutching her stuffed triceratops. "Elena, can you help me with my art project?" What kind of project?" "We have to draw our family, and I want to draw you, but I don't know how to draw your chair right." Elena's expression flickered, surprise, then something softer. "You want to draw me in your family picture?" "Yeah, is that okay?" "That's more than okay, sweetheart. I'd be honored." "Yes." Caleb watched them move to the living room, Lily chattering about her artistic vision while Elena offered suggestions. Something in his chest loosened, a tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. This was what he'd been fighting for. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but this. His daughter, including Elena in her understanding of family, Elena taking time to care about a 6-year-old's art project, the 3 of them existing together in comfortable domesticity. Later, after Lily was in bed and Elena was getting ready to leave, she turned to him. "I've been thinking about something." "Yeah?" "You remember when you said we should take a real vacation? Not a work trip where I drag you to boring conferences?" "I remember." "How would you feel about Hawaii? Spring break week, the 3 of us?" Caleb blinked. "You want to take a family vacation with me and Lily? Is that weird? I know she's your daughter and you're not just anything. And yeah, I'd love that. Lily would lose her mind." "Good. Because I already put in for the time off, and if I back out now, my new assistant will probably quit." She smiled. "I'm trying this thing where I actually plan for personal time instead of just hoping it magically appears." "How's that working out?" "Ask me in April when we're on a beach, and I'm not checking my email every 5 minutes." "Deal, boss." March arrived with rain and the slow creep toward spring. Lily's birthday came and went. A party at the trampoline park with a dozen screaming 6-year-olds, and Elena showing up with the custom dinosaur encyclopedia that immediately became Lily's most prized possession. "You didn't have to go that big," Caleb said, watching his daughter page through illustrations of long-extinct reptiles. "I wanted to. She's important to me. She loves you, you know." "The feeling's mutual." Elena watched Lily with an expression Caleb couldn't quite read. "I never thought I'd have this. A family, even an unconventional one. It's nice." The week before their Hawaii trip, Elena showed up at Caleb's apartment unannounced on a Tuesday night. He opened the door to find her looking exhausted, her hair falling out of its usual perfect arrangement, mascara slightly smudged like she'd been rubbing her eyes. "Can I come in?" "Of course." He stepped aside. "What's wrong?" She wheeled into his living room, took a deep breath. "I saw my father today." Caleb sat on the couch. "I thought you decided not to." "I did. But he showed up at my office, said if I wouldn't have dinner with him, he'd just ambush me at work." She laughed bitterly. Classic manipulation tactic. "What did he want?" "To tell me I'm making a mistake. That dating you is beneath me. That I'm embarrassing myself in the family name, that people are laughing at me behind my back." She met Caleb's eyes. "He actually said you're probably just waiting for the right moment to ask for money." Caleb felt anger flare hot in his chest. "What did you say?" "I told him he was a bitter old man who couldn't stand seeing me happy. That my relationship was none of his business, and he could go to hell." Elena's hands were shaking. "Then I had security escort him out of the building." "Good." He said, her voice cracked. "He said I was going to end up alone. that no one would ever love me for me. And the sooner I accepted that, the less it would hurt when everyone left. Elena. And the worst part is, there's a piece of me that still believes him, that thinks maybe he's right and I'm just setting myself up for heartbreak. Caleb moved to kneel in front of her wheelchair, took both her hands. Look at me. She did, eyes swimming with tears. Your father is wrong. About everything. You're not going to end up alone because you're not alone now. You have me, you have Lily, you have friends who actually care about you instead of what you can do for them. He squeezed her hands. And I'm not with you for your money. I'm with you because you're brilliant and frustrating and you make me want to be better than I am. Because you challenge me and surprise me and somehow make my life both more complicated and more worthwhile. You mean that. Every word. And if you need me to prove it, if you need me to sign a prenup, or whatever rich people do to protect themselves, I'll do it. Because I don't want your money, Elena. I just want you. She pulled him up, kissed him hard, and for a while they didn't need words. Later, lying together on his couch in the dark, she said, I'm stepping back. From what? The company. Not completely, but I'm moving to a different role. I'm tired of running every aspect of the business, tired of the constant pressure and the board politics, and the sacrificing my entire life for quarterly profits. Caleb propped himself up on one elbow. Are you sure? You love that company. I love what I built, but I'm realizing I can love it without letting it consume me. She turned to face him. I want time for this. For us. For Lily's art projects and family vacations and lazy Sunday mornings. I want a life that's about more than just work. What will you do instead? Focus on product development and innovation, the parts I actually enjoy. Let someone else handle the business side and the investor relations and all the parts that make me want to tear my hair out. She smiled. I'm thinking of it as a promotion to the position I actually want instead of the one I felt obligated to keep. When? After we get back from Hawaii. I'm announcing it at the next board meeting. She paused. I'm also buying out the remaining members who are loyal to my father. Clean slate, fresh start, building something sustainable instead of just profitable. That's a big change. It's overdue. I should have done it years ago, but I was too proud to admit I couldn't do everything. She took his hand. You've taught me something important. What's that? That asking for help isn't weakness. That sharing your life with someone doesn't make you less capable. That maybe the bravest thing I can do is admit I don't want to do this alone anymore. Caleb kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. Wait until I actually follow through. You will. You're stubborn like that. Hawaii was everything Caleb had hoped for and more. A week of sunshine and beaches, of Lily learning to snorkel, and Elena laughing as waves crashed around her wheelchair at the water's edge. They built sand castles and ate shave ice and stayed up late watching the stars from their hotel balcony while Lily slept soundly in the adjoining room. On their last night, after dinner at a restaurant overlooking the ocean, Elena pulled Caleb aside while Lily was distracted by the koi pond. I have something for you. Elena, you've already... Just open it. She handed him a small box. Inside was a key. Is this a key to my place? I know it's fast, and I'm not saying you need to move in tomorrow or anything, but I want you to have access. I want you to feel like you belong there. She took a breath. Because you do. You and Lily both. Caleb looked at the key, then at her. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Oh. He kissed her there in the restaurant garden while their daughter giggled at fish and Hawaiian music played softly in the background. It wasn't a proposal. They weren't ready for that yet. Might not be for years. But it was a promise. A commitment to building something real and lasting. Flying back to Seattle, Lily fell asleep against Caleb's shoulder while Elena worked quietly on her laptop beside them. Every so often, she'd look up, catch his eye, and smile. Not the polished professional smile she used in boardrooms, but something genuine and unguarded. They landed to Seattle rain and reality, but somehow it didn't feel like a letdown. Just a return to the life they were building together, messy and complicated and more than worth the effort. Elena announced her transition at the next board meeting. The news made headlines for about 48 hours before the tech world moved on to the next scandal. Her father tried to make trouble, but without board members loyal to him, He had no leverage. He sent a scathing email that Elena deleted without reading. "I'm done giving him power over my life," she told Caleb. "Some relationships can't be fixed, and that's okay." She settled into her new role with visible relief. No more emergency board meetings interrupting dinner. No more 16-hour days that left her too exhausted for anything but sleep. She still worked hard. That would never change. But she worked smarter, delegating and trusting her team and actually taking weekends off. Caleb watched her bloom in the new freedom. Watched her laugh more, stress less, show up for the small moments instead of just the big gestures. She came to Lily's school play and sat in the front row, cheering louder than any other parent. She learned to cook 3 actual meals under Caleb's patient instruction. She started painting again, a hobby she'd abandoned years ago, and her apartment slowly filled with abstract canvases that were honestly pretty terrible but made her happy. Summer arrived with long days and possibilities. They took day trips to the San Juan Islands, weekend camping excursions where Elena gamely navigated accessible trails and laughed at herself when things didn't go smoothly. Lily appointed herself as tour guide and took the responsibility seriously, making sure Elena never felt left out or limited. In July, sitting on their bench overlooking the Sound, the same place where they'd had so many important conversations, Elena said, "I'm happy." "Yeah?" "Yeah, like genuinely, sustainably happy. Not just having a good day or a good moment, but actually content with my life." She leaned against his shoulder. She leaned this out. "I didn't think that was possible for me." "Why not?" "Because I'd convinced myself that success and happiness were mutually exclusive, that I could have one or the other, but not both. That letting people in would make me weak. And now I know that's bullshit. That the strongest thing I've ever done is let you see me scared and imperfect and still choosing to stay." She turned to face him. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was actively pushing you away. Thank you for letting me in, even when it terrified you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching ferries cross the water, gulls wheeled overhead. Somewhere behind them, Lily was examining tide pools and narrating her discoveries to patient strangers. "I've been thinking," Caleb said eventually, "about the future, about what comes next. And I want you in it, all of it, not just the easy parts or the fun parts, but the boring Tuesday nights and the arguments about whose turn it is to do dishes and the messy, complicated reality of actually building a life with someone." Elena smiled. "That's the most unromantic declaration I've ever heard. I'm a construction worker, not a poet, but I mean it." "I know you do, and I want that too. The boring Tuesdays and the dish arguments and all of it." She took his hand. "I want to meet you in the middle, not in your world or mine, but in something we build together. Our world." "Our world," she agreed. There would still be challenges. Elena's father would continue to make trouble from a distance. The media would never completely lose interest in their relationship. Board members would question decisions, and competitors would look for weaknesses, and the world would keep trying to tear down what they were building. But they'd learned something important over the past months. That love wasn't about finding someone who made life easy. It was about finding someone worth doing the hard work for. That vulnerability wasn't weakness, but the foundation of real connection. That choosing each other every day through the complications and the chaos was worth more than any amount of wealth or status or perfect moments. Lily came running up, soaking wet and delighted, a starfish cupped carefully in her hands. "Look, can we take it home?" "We have to put it back, sweetheart. It needs to live in the ocean." "But I want to keep it." "Some things are better when we let them be free," Elena said gently. "We can appreciate them without owning them." Lily considered this, then carefully returned the starfish to its tide pool. "Okay, but I'm going to draw a picture of it so I remember." "That's a perfect compromise." They walked back to the parking lot as the sun started to set, Lily between them holding both their hands. Caleb caught Elena's eye over their daughter's head, saw his own contentment reflected back. This was it. Not a fairy tale ending, not perfect happiness forever. Just 3 imperfect people choosing to build something real together. Choosing vulnerability over safety. Choosing each other despite all the reasons it would be easier not to. And in the end, that choice, that daily deliberate commitment to show up and try and build something worth keeping, was the only kind of happy ending that really mattered. Because the truth that Caleb and Elena had both learned was this: we spend so much time trying to control our lives, to build walls that keep us safe from hurt and disappointment. We convince ourselves that being alone is easier than being vulnerable, that success measured in dollars or status is more reliable than success measured in human connection. But walls that keep pain out also keep love out. And the most successful life isn't the one with the biggest bank account or the most impressive title. It's the one where you look around and realize you've surrounded yourself with people who see all of you, even the broken parts, and choose to stay anyway. Elena had learned to stop hiding behind her company and her wealth, to stop letting fear disguise itself as self-sufficiency. Caleb had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step into a world that doesn't want you and refuse to leave. And Lily, wise beyond her years, had taught them both that family isn't defined by blood or perfection, but by showing up for each other when it matters. So they kept showing up, through ordinary days and extraordinary challenges, through moments of joy and moments of doubt, through all the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of choosing to love someone despite knowing they'll disappoint you sometimes, knowing you'll disappoint them, knowing that nothing is guaranteed except the choice to keep trying. And that choice, made new every morning, was worth more than any amount of money or status or carefully constructed safety. It was simply worth everything.